This is Atomic Shinobi, and today I'm going to narrate fourth and final part of What If Kid Naruto and Gaara were secretly trained by Kakashi. If you enjoy this video, please like, share and subscribe to this channel. Now wasting no more time, let's start the story.
Doubt besieged him as he sat in his normal seat next to a slumbering Nara and a munching Akamichi. His eyes were sharp and inquisitive as he scanned the classroom he would be in for the last time. He just could feel the premonition in the air. Once Iruka Sensei entered the filled classroom, with bandages on his arm that weren't there previously. Naruto decided to put his suspicions aside for the present. He had more pressing matters to attend to. Congratulations all of you in achieving this milestone. From this point on you will work in conjunction with your fellow shinobi in the service of our village. Those headbands you all wear now are symbols of just how committed you are to Konoha. So wear them with pride, Iruka proclaimed with a proud smile. Now then, with that said, I will now read off each of your new squads. So please pay close attention to who you will be paired up with. At the mention of squads, the blonde perked up and his interest was piqued as he listened with eagerness for his name to be called. 6 squads had been called before they came to his name. Now then, Squad 7 will consist of Sakura Haruno, Sasuke Uchiha, and Naruto Uzumaki. The blood drained from his face. Not them. Anyone, but them. God, what did I do to deserve this punishment? Why couldn't you have paired me up with Ino or Shikamaru or Ino? His ramblings were cut short when his brown-haired instructor announced who exactly composed Squad 10, his dream team. Ino, Shikamaru, Choji, it's just not fair. Why do I, an amazing ninja, get stuck with them of all people? Naruto wailed as he banged his head against his desk, drawing the snickers of his nearby neighbors. Don't be so melodramatic. You should have known, considering who exactly our parents are. Though I do pity you. Seriously, what a drag to be paired up with those two. It makes being stuck with Ino a little more bearable, but not in the least troublesome. Shikamaru's lazy voice drew the woeful blonde's attention as he shot him a venomous and jealous glare. Don't remind me. You have Choji and Ino on your team. It's just not fair, I tell you. He could feel Choji's gentle reassuring pat on his back, and even that wasn't enough to keep at bay his grief over not having at least one of his close friends on his squad. Then the soft giggles from Ino were the final straw and rivers of disappointed tears flowed down his face as he figuratively curled up in despair. Naruto, stop wallowing and pay attention. Sasuke and you both received the highest score on the exam. So it was decided that it would be best to pair you both up alongside the highest-ranking Kunoichi. Iruka snapped, after announcing all the teams, at the blonde who at the very least had the decency to look embarrassed. Now then, in exactly an hour your Jonin senseis will come and retrieve you and your teammates. You may take this short break to go and have a quick lunch, but be sure to be here in time or else you'll be left behind. Iruka instructed and let his once students filter out the door. He hadn't gotten more than a couple steps from the door when he spotted his new team mates a few feet away the academy entrance. He glanced backwards in the emptying hallway, and noticed the newly dubbed Squad 10 standing to one side, obviously waiting for him. Naruto shifted his gaze between the two, indecision evident in his face. Knowing it was better to start on the right track, he gave his childhood friends an apologetic smile before heading over to the pair of black-haired boy and pink-haired girl. He approached them apprehensively, aware now that he would be stuck with them for the near future. Sup, guys? The blonde greeted roughly, but not unkindly. Sasuke, or as Naruto liked to call him the bastard, was eyeing the blonde with pure distaste. The rapidly escalating hostility was swarming around the pair of males. Sensing the abrupt tension, Sakura turned angrily to the one she deemed responsible. Naruto, stopping glaring at Sasuke. He raised an incredulous brow in her direction, however he barely even reacted to her raised fist and merely ducked to the side when it neared his head with a deadly intent. A sigh escaped him, but he said nothing and merely glanced toward the exit of the building and back to the scowling boy. Sasuke understood the silent request and begrudgingly gave a short nod and headed outside with a confused Sakura trailing a few feet behind him and irritated blonde at the back. When they had seen Naruto walk towards his new team mates and not them, Choji and Ino were surprised to say the least. Shikamaru, on the other hand, had expected it from the blonde and his general goodwill toward others. Come on, I'm hungry and we don't have much time before we have to get back, which is such a drag. At his command, his companions followed after him towards the stairs up to the roof of the building. However, just before she reached the top, Ino glanced back down to where she saw the object of her affection disappear out the door. A flicker of disappointment reflected in her teal eyes, and the image of a grinning blonde with flower extended toward her danced in her mind. With a small rueful smile, Ino continued up the stairs, trailing a few feet behind her male team. Mates, mentally berating herself. Don't get stupid ideas in your head, Ino. Even if forehead's on Whisker's team, it doesn't mean he'll fall for her, right? Sasuke had finally stopped walking when they reached some benches and pivoted around to face the blonde, who cocked an eyebrow at the sudden motion, and nearly caused Sakura to crash into him. What is it you wanted to say, loser? A tick mark appeared on his forehead before the blonde willed it away and calmed his irritation. It wouldn't do to kill his teammate before they even met their sensei. I want to call a truce too. Well, whatever the hell is going on between us, it's only going to get in the way once we go on missions. So what do you say? Naruto asked with a smile. A tan hand extended towards the black-haired boy, who eyed him with suspicion. Eventually, Naruto lowered it once he saw that the bastard wasn't planning on taking his hands out of his pockets anytime soon. Sasuke paused before answering, looking slightly reluctant. HN. Fine. So long as you don't get in my way, we'll call a truce. Naruto nodded and scratched his cheek when a sudden thought came to mind. What exactly do you mean by get in the way? I'm your team, mate now. We have to work together to get missions done. Black thin lines frowned and Sasuke narrowed his eyes in thought before turning away and scoffed. Yet, he never gave an answer to the confused blonde. Naruto grumbled curses and insults at the stoic boy under his breath before glancing at his orange watch. We only have 40 minutes left before we have to go back and I'm starving. He heard a nervous shuffling beside him, causing him to look up, and he came eye to eye with a set of inquiring beautiful green eyes. The blonde blinked in slight surprise, before realizing he was staring at his female teammate, and quickly turned toward the brooding boy with a slight blush. I never knew she had such pretty eyes. He flickered his gaze over her from head to toe discreetly. She's actually really pretty. I wonder why I never noticed. He brushed the matter far from his mind and focused on his next course of action. Clearing his suddenly parched throat, he gained the attention of his fellow teammate. So we only got about 40 or so minutes left. Want to eat together or go our separate ways? Naruto noticed that Sakura looked towards Sasuke for guidance. He quickly stored that information for later, in case it came in handy. I don't care what you do. I'm leaving. Expected response. Naruto stuck out his tongue at the retreating blue-cladded figure. Once he could no longer see him, the blonde focused to his side and saw the look of indecision on Sakura's face. Sakura, would you like to go out to eat with me? I'll pay. He had meant it in a way as to get to know one another, but the girl's reaction was not what he expected. Suddenly beet red, the pink-haired girl raised an enraged fist which he expertly dodged once again, and shot her a confused look. Are you seriously asking me out on a date? As if I would go out with someone like you? With her head held high, the annoyed girl stomped after Sasuke, leaving behind a bewildered blonde. What the hell just happened? Shaking his head in astonishment, Naruto heaved an exhausted sigh before searching for the squad he so desperately wished he had been assigned to. Over the course of the years since meeting Gaara, Naruto had developed a knack for sensing the chakra signatures of others. At first it was purely out of reflex, knowing where Kakashi was when he was out in the village, or managing to point out a hidden Anbu who always quickly moved when he discovered them. But when Kakashi realized what he was actually using to sense others, he helped hone in the sensory skill he had. Apparently his mother had been a very adept sensor and it must have run in the family. He immediately found the 3 chakra signatures he was most familiar with, besides those of his Shift family, and headed towards them. He found them lounging on the roof of a nearby building. You know, if you keep sunbathing like that you're gonna wrinkle up just like a raisin, Shikamaru. At the familiar cocky tone, 3 pair of surprised eyes turned toward the blonde crouching on the railing with a large foxy grin. Hey guys. Miss me? A sense of overwhelming relief and joy shone on Ino's smiling face as she tackled her fellow blonde into a hug. Whiskers. I thought you abandoned me, Ino wailed dramatically, causing the blonde in her arms to chuckle in amusement at the theatrics. I'd never abandon you, Ino. I'm hurt you'd think otherwise. Naruto played along as he stared to fake a wounded face, which caused the on-looking males to chuckle and shake their heads at the pair over dramatic blondes. So how did it go with your new squad? Shikamaru asked once the blonde sat down next Choji and Ino, forcing him to sit across the lounging Nara. The sudden scowl on the blonde's face was all the lazy genius needed to know that it hadn't gone as Naruto planned. Well, one thing went semi-okay, but the rest just really blew up in my face, Naruto confessed with an exasperated sigh. The looks of sympathy from his friends encouraged him to continue. At the very least, Sasuke and me called a truce to whatever the hell is between us and Sakura. Well, I don't think there's much I can do there, Naruto replied before adding. When I asked if they wanted to eat with me, Sasuke outright refused and left. Sakura for some strange reason thought I was asking her out on a date and freaked out. So here I am, alone and hungry, Naruto finished with a woe.as.me tone in his voice. At the mention of Sakura and date, Ino froze and turned a hard gaze at the chatting blonde at her side. An ugly emotion rose up, and try as she might, Ino couldn't fight it from coming to the surface. She was really pissed off. Her suddenly threatening aura was picked up by the Nara, who started to glance behind him, muttering a "what's my mom doing around here?" under his breath. Unaware of the very present danger he was in, Naruto started to eat some of the food Choji shared with him. Shikamaru, on the other hand, was looking like a deer caught in headlights when he found the source of his troubles. "So Whiskers, did you?" Ino practically hissed the nickname towards her fellow blonde. The sickening sweetness of her voice caused Naruto to stop mid, chew and glance over to his left. Ino was leaning in very close, and he couldn't stop the sudden rush of blood to his face at her proximity. Did what?" he responded after harshly swallowing the food in his mouth. A truly feline grin spread across deviously on Ino's face, scaring the males in her presence. "Ask Sakura out on a date. All I said was if she wanted to go get something to eat with me. I was going to pay and everything, but I don't think that counts as a date. I just wanted to get to know her since she's my team mate now, ya know." Shocked disbelief stunned Ino. That's not asking for a date. Ino slowly opened her mouth hesitantly to say something. Yet, no words came to mind as she stared incredulous at the frightened boy in front of her. "He's a special kind of idiot, isn't he?" she mused fondly at last before letting her pent-up rage dissipate in a long sigh. Seeing his chance, Naruto scooted closer to Choji in the railing, in case he needed a quick getaway. His movements alerted the young Kunoichi, and her irritation rose, but didn't act on it. "Naruto, you pretty much did ask her on a date. No wonder Forehead freaked out," Ino finally said as she crossed her arms with a frown on her face. Wide-eyed, Naruto gaped like a fish out of water at the annoyed-looking blonde. Dumbstruck, he stuttered out, What? I didn't mean to. I swear I wouldn't ask out another girl besides you, Ino, ya know." At his semi-confession, Ino blushed and smiled at the red-faced whiskered boy. Soon enough, the remaining tension smothered out, leaving behind 3 relieved boys. Redirecting the conversation before his idiot friend realized just what he said, Shikamaru asked, "So what exactly did you and Sasuke call a truce to, Naruto?" "Well, you know, to all those competitions we tend to get ourselves into. Remember when we had our accuracy test?" Naruto stopped and resumed when he saw them nod their heads. "Sasuke and I took the longest, because we kept throwing one more shuriken than the other until one of us missed his target. He won the first time, but I beat the bastard the second time around. From there, every other thing become a competition between us." "Oh, so you're just putting aside your rivalry?" Ino mused aloud, tapping her index finger on her chin in thought. Naruto scratched the back of his head and nodded slowly. "Yeah, that about sums it up." He glanced down to his wrist and saw that their break was close to ending. He rose to his feet and patted down his black shinobi pants before heading toward the railing. He looked back over his shoulder to the still lounging Team 10 and said with a foxy grin, "I'll see you guys back in the classroom. Don't get there too late." With a swift wave goodbye, the blonde jumped off the roof and somersaulted in the air to land gracefully on his feet. Used to his antics, Team 10 peered over the railing and saw, with various faces of amusement, the cocky smirk the blonde flashed them before leisurely walking into the building. "You know, he never told us where he went after his test. Plus, Iruka Sensei never really told us who got Rookie of the Year, either. I wonder why," Ino asked aloud as she watched the blonde spike of mess disappear through the door. "Something must have happened, but I don't want to think too much on it until later. It's too troublesome right now with all this team stuff." Shikamaru answered her with a sigh as he too stood up and headed for the stairs. Choji and Ino shared a look of understanding and followed the slouching Nara. After the first couple of teams left with their senseis, Naruto hadn't thought much about it, but as time went by and slowly all the remaining teams left one by one until his was the very last one left. That's when the suspicion started to set in and his earlier thoughts of a bad omen danced across his mind. An hour ticked by and his team was still waiting for their Jonin sensei, and that was all the whiskered boy needed to know. The blonde menace couldn't take the aggravation of knowing who exactly was going to be teaching his team. It had to be him of all people. What kind of Jonin is 2 hours late in picking up his own team? Sasuke retorted bitterly as his own irritation started to set in. Do you think he might have forgotten? Sakura directed the question to the silently fuming Uchiha, who shrugged in response. Naruto scoffed aloud as he heard them. They obviously didn't know who they were dealing with. Trust me, this guy hasn't forgotten, but since he's taking his sweet time, I'll leave a little welcoming present for him. With a mischievous gleam in his eyes, the blonde started to create his trap while Sakura and Sasuke looked on in surprise. It was rare to actually see Naruto making the traps, instead of just seeing the aftermath. In less than 5 minutes, he had managed to hook up a bucket filled with crushed up chalk he had gathered from one of the nearby cabinets. Then he set a tripwire right at eye level, and another a few inches from the ground. What the pair didn't see the blonde do was put an extra wire, barely visible compared to the first two, a foot from the second one he put on the ground. Sasuke scoffed at the what seemed to be an obvious trap. A Jonin wouldn't fall for something that simple, loser. Naruto chuckled at him and shook his head. No, he definitely will. I'm the #1 prankster in all of Konoha after all. Sakura huffed in irritation at the blonde. You're the #1 at something, all right. The #1 idiot. Naruto frowned in annoyance, but chose to keep his mouth shut. He didn't want to be dodging fist until their sensei arrived. With a roll of his eyes, the blonde left the high-strung girl by herself at the front of the classroom and sat down across from the silent raven-haired boy. So Sasuke, how's it going? At the feeble attempt of a conversation from the whiskered boy, the Uchiha grunted ambiguously before turning his attention to the windows, giving the easily ticked-off blonde a cold shoulder. Naruto. Don't bother Sasuke. You're annoying him, Sakura yelled as she approached the boys. I wasn't doing anything. Stop jumping to conclusions, Naruto retorted, now further irritated with his team mates. I wasn't jumping to conclusions. It's obvious Sasuke doesn't want to talk to you. Normally at this point, Naruto would have stopped arguing, but something inside was urging him to continue, to teach the girl before him a lesson. Oh yeah? Then I guess he just wants to talk to you then? Fine by me. Go ahead, talk away with the bastard. Naruto gestured with open arms towards Sasuke, who was trying his hardest not to snap at the two. A rush of blood colored, the pink-haired Kunoichi.in. Training. Red, who quickly glanced between the smug-looking blonde and brooding raven-haired boy. Knowing that Naruto was right, Sakura clenched her fist tightly at her side and tried to calm her raging anger, yet it was a futile endeavor. Just as she about to launch herself at the cocky whiskered boy, the sudden sound of something falling, something heavy, to the ground turned the Genin's attention toward the forgotten trapped classroom door. The sight of their recently arrived Jonin sensei was enough to leave the disbelieving pair of Genin gaping in shock, while Naruto broke down in delighted laughter. At the front, covered in pasty white chalk powder and sprawled on the wooden floor, entangled in wires, was a silver-haired man with a black mask covering the lower half of his face. The blonde's laughter drew the man's attention to the culprit and narrowed a dark eye at him. With a quick flick of his wrist with a kunai, the Jonin managed to free himself and stood up, patting away the dusty remains from his clothing and gravity. Defying hair. Once he was satisfied with his appearance, the tall man eyed with the 3 Genin before him. So you must be Team 7. My first impression of you. You're all a bunch of idiots, especially the blonde. Meet me up on the roof. After the quick dismissal and windy departure, Sasuke and Sakura whirled quickly toward the still laughing blonde who was wiping away his joyous tears from his eyes. A cold fury burned in their eyes. Oblivious to the dangerous situation, Naruto ended up on the roof, accompanied by his team mates, sporting a shining black eye and couple of bruises, which left the boy's previous pristine condition completely ruined, much to the sadistic amusement of the silver-haired man before the trio. Now then, I believe an introduction is in order. Tell me your name, likes, dislikes, dreams, hobbies, well you know, stuff like that. Sakura looked between her 2 brooding team mates and hesitantly spoke up. Well sensei, why don't you start first, so we know what we're supposed to say. The Jonin hummed lazily, rubbing his chin in thought. My name is Kakashi Hitaki. My likes and dislikes? I don't really feel like telling you. My dream for the future. Never given it much thought. Hobbies? I have lots of hobbies. At his short introduction, the aspiring Genin twitched in irritation at the lack of information. All we got was his name. The Rosette grumbled to her companions. Ignoring the genin's annoyance, Kakashi continued with the team introductions. Alright, how about you next, Blondie? Since you seem to have such a knack for pranks. A foxy grin greeted the exasperated Jonin, who remained impassive in appearance. It wouldn't do for the other two genin to recognize the relationship between him and his little brother. My name's Naruto Uzumaki. Remember it, I like ramen, training, and a bunch of other stuff. Dislikes? Well, there's not many things I dislike. I have some hobbies. My dream for the future is to be the best Hokage this village has ever seen. At the whiskered teen's fierce proclamation, Kakashi hid a fond smile and silently congratulated the blonde on not giving away too much information on himself. It was always best to remain a mystery in the shinobi business. Well, alright then, Pinky, you're next. Kakashi gestured toward the only female in their group. Oh, my name is Sakura Haruno. The thing I like is... the person I like is... Sakura paused her rambling as she sneaked glances at the silent black-haired boy who sat next to her and giggled, much to the annoyance of the males present, before continuing. My hobbies are... and my dream is... She squealed loudly at her thoughts and she gazed dreamily at the irritated-looking Sasuke. I dislike Naruto and Ino. Her voiced annoyances were the only noteworthy things that her male mates understood. So she hates Naruto and his little girlfriend. This will certainly be interesting. Kakashi mused before turning to his final and most worrisome future student. Alright, finally it's your turn. He glanced pointedly at the brooding Uchiha. Sasuke met his gaze and Kakashi saw a spark of confusion and interest in his black eyes before the boy glared down at the roof they were meeting on. My name is Sasuke Uchiha. There aren't many things I particularly like or dislike. My dream is not a dream. I will make it a reality. I will restore my clan and kill a certain someone. Sasuke answered with his hands folded underneath his chin, and his dark orbs seemed to glower off into the distance. If only looks could kill. I feared this would happen. The Hokage really didn't give me an easy bunch this time around. Kakashi grimaced internally as he realized just how much of a handful his brother's genin squad would be. If they passed his exam, that is. With a masked smirk, Kakashi straightened his slouch posture, gaining his surprisingly quiet future student's attention. Tomorrow, we will be having a survival exercise, so come prepared for long-term battle. His instructions confused the trio of fresh graduates. Wait, sensei. We did plenty of those back in the academy. Shouldn't we be going out on missions instead? Sakura inquired. Yes, that would be the case if you were real genin. This exercise is really more like a test and your opponent shall be me. If you can't pass my test, you will be sent back to the academy. This is the true genin exam. Naruto gaped in disbelief. He'd never heard about this. Hold on a second. What do you mean by true genin exam? What the hell was the academy test for then? Kakashi chuckled at their affronted looks. With a slight shrug he answered, oh that was simply to weed out the ones that weren't ready for the real thing. I must warn you though. This exam has a 66% failure rate. Out of the 27 graduates only 9 will become genin. What? Naruto and Sakura exclaimed in unison while Sasuke grumbled a curse. I will see you 3 tomorrow at dawn at Training Ground 7. Oh, and by the way, you might want to skip out on breakfast. Don't want you puking all over the place tomorrow. With nothing else to add, Kakashi smiled and waved farewell at the stunned trio before vanishing in a flash of silver. At the departure, the blonde began to mumble incoherently before heaving a long sigh. With his hands in his pockets, Naruto began to head toward the ledge of the roof. Before he jumped off, he glanced over his shoulder to see his mates watching him curiously. Guess I'll see you guys in the morning. Later. A swift jump over the rail and the blonde was gone out of sight. At the blonde's quick leave, Sakura whirled around towards Sasuke only to find that he had already left as well. So much for team bonding today. The pink-haired girl said sadly before also heading home. Tomorrow would definitely prove interesting to say the least. When he arrived home that day after his classes in the academy, Gaara did not expect to find either of his brothers home, much less find them fighting on the dojo floor. What are you guys doing? Gaara asked with an exasperated sigh. Pausing mid-attack, Naruto growled out, this bastard didn't tell me there was a second genin exam, and he also didn't tell me he was going to be my Jonin sensei. Kakashi just laughed as he dodged another set of shuriken hurling toward at him. Stop moving so I can cut you, you bastard, the blonde snarled in frustration. If you had better aim it wouldn't matter if I moved or not. At the insult to his skill, Naruto forego his weapons and launched himself with a yell at the silver-haired man. Unable to avoid the tackle, Kakashi and Naruto fell to the wooden floor with a heavy thump, and began to wrestle on the ground. Seeing that their argument was going to last a while, Gaara left the dojo and headed toward the kitchen for a snack. It would seem that watching a pair of idiots fight was really making him hungry. Luckily by dinner all was back to normal in the Namikaze estate, and Kakashi, to Naruto's discontent, was cheerfully eating without a single scratch on him. So what exactly is this test tomorrow anyways? Kakashi looked up from his bowl of miso soup and smiled at the scowling blonde. I can't give you any details that I didn't give your other team mates. It would be an unfair advantage. With a sigh, Naruto nodded in understanding. He glanced to his side and saw Kagemaru, his faithful partner in crime, on the floor with a bowl in front of him eating his own meal when a thought occurred. Hey, would I be able to bring Kagemaru tomorrow with me? He's been training really hard to be tracking Ninken. What do you say? Kagemaru paused in his chewing and raised his head with hopeful golden eyes towards the silver-haired man. The Jonin hummed in thought and looked toward the pair. Well, Kagemaru can hold his own in a fight and the two of them do work well together. What the hell, why not? Sure, but you'll have to go get him his own headband marking him as a Ninken from the Hokage tomorrow before heading to the training ground. Tilting his head to the side, Naruto gazed questioningly toward him. Headband? Why does he need one? Akamaru, Kiba's dog, doesn't have one, so why should Kagemaru get one? Akamaru is a recognized Inuzuka dog, and they're not required to have one since their partners have their own. But Kagemaru isn't, and if he's caught by an Inuzuka within the village acting as a Ninken without you or something to prove who he's loyal to, he could be killed on the spot. Haven't you ever wondered why my summons have their own headbands that aren't of Konoha's symbol? No? Kakashi sighed before explaining, their summons loyal to me. Since I'm loyal to Konoha they're not questioned, but if I should leave Konoha and they were to remain, they would be killed because they have no loyalty to Konoha, only to me. That's why their loyalty doesn't matter as long as their master is loyal to the village. Oh, I get it now, Naruto chirped happily before returning to his meal. However, Kagemaru had sudden idea in his mind to ask his blonde master. Boss, could I get the Hiruzen symbol engraved on my headband instead of the Konoha one? At this, all three males in the room raised an eyebrow in surprise. Why don't you want the Konoha symbol, Kage? Naruto asked, baffled at the request. Well, it's not that I don't like the village boss, it's just that I'm not loyal to the village. My loyalty is with you and your family. The black dog clarified, looking a little embarrassed. That's right. We want to have our headbands with the family symbol too. Akito, the russet-furred dog, added, and Hoshi, the light brown one, also voiced her positive input as well. Kakashi chuckled at the responses and nodded his in agreement. It's probably better this way, since we'll be able to use their symbols as marking points as well if needed. Naruto also nodded as he petted the large dog's head in affection, and said with a grin, sure thing. Kagemaru. We'll ask the old man tomorrow for a blank headband and we'll engrave it ourselves. It was the crack of dawn. The red and orange rays of sunlight were just beginning to peek out from behind the mountainous horizon. Numerous wildlife were slowly waking up as the world awoken alongside them. The singing and chirping of the birds could be heard throughout the village. They had been waiting there since early dawn just as the man had asked, but now, 3 hours later, there was still no sign of either blonde or silver-haired male. Where the hell is Naruto? Sakura fumed mentally as she paced furiously on the dirt and grass-covered ground. Sasuke wasn't faring any better than his pink-haired companion and silently vowed to rip the whiskered-cheeked boy a new one for leaving him alone with his #1 fan. She had only stopped pestering him about 10 minutes ago. It was torture. Where the hell was that idiot? Just as the sun almost reached the midpoint in the bright blue sky, 3 figures appeared off in the distance. Their happy chatter alerted the irritated pair of their approach. You're late, Sakura yelled as she pointed an accusatory finger at the sheepish-looking pair. She had yet to notice, because of her anger, the dark figure who began to growl lowly at her sudden shriek. Sasuke, however, hadn't raised a surprised dark brow at the imposing creature standing next to the grinning blonde. Hey loser, whose dog is that? Naruto scowled momentarily at the raven-haired boy before smirking and said with a cheeky grin, this here is Kagemaru. He's my Ninken partner, ya know. Now noticing the fearsome black-furred canine, Sakura yelped in surprise and hid behind a frowning Sasuke. Jay. Get that thing away from me. The blonde's previous scowl returned with a bitter vengeance. Kagemaru isn't a thing. He's my partner, so you better treat him with respect. Kakashi, who had previously had his head stuck in the pages of his little orange book, slowly lowered his book and glanced up with interest at the bickering trio. Not even 5 minutes have passed and already he's fighting with them. The Jonin thought with a sigh before firmly shutting his precious literature and placing it in his back pouch. He placed, from within his vest, an alarm clock on one of the 3 wooden stumps and cleared his throat to gain his arguing student's attention. Now then, you have until noon to get these bells from me or else you won't get any lunch, Kakashi explained as he bounced the tinkling chimes in his hands. 2 growls of hunger followed his brief mention of food, and the silver-haired man raised a brow at the smirking blonde who was the only to not look starved as he had hoped. I thought there was something weird about you telling us to skip out on breakfast, and plus I'm not that worried about throwing up here and there, Naruto clarified with a shrug as he shot a wink at his amused canine companion who had been the one to point out that little detail in the morning when he almost left the estate without eating anything. Kakashi hid a mirroring smirk of his own and continued with his instructions. As you can see, I only have 2 bells, which means one of you will be tied up to a post and won't get any food. They will also be the one sent back to the academy. If none of you get a bell, then you all fail and all of you get sent back. It's as easy as that. Horrified at the thought of being held back and separated from the boy of her dreams, Sakura gasped and stared with wide-eyed terror at the smiling ninja. Sasuke grimaced at the implications of the exercise and braced himself for the tough battle ahead of him. There was no way he would be the one to be sent back. The only 2 to take the sudden turn of events rather well was Naruto and Kagemaru. The duo shared a quick glance, and instantly knew that together they could easily overpower his older brother. The Jonin was the only one to see that exchange between the pair and hoped that one of them would see the real purpose of this test. Yet, another look at the other teens and Kakashi didn't get his hopes up. It would take a miracle for this bunch to get it. None of you will even be able to touch one of these bells if you don't come at me with an intent to kill. Another shocked gasp escaped the pink-haired girl. But sensei, that's dangerous, you could get hurt. At her exclamation, a snort escaped the blonde who shook his head in silent astonishment. Sakura whirled quickly around and glared in annoyance at the amused whiskered boy. What, Naruto? Are you seriously this ignorant? You do realize that not one of us has the ability to actually land a strong enough blow on a Jonin, much less hurt him of all people. Naruto pointed with his thumb at the bemused man. You do know who he is, right? He did tell us his name after all. Choosing to ignore the slight to her intelligence, Sakura slowly shook her head no in favor of finding out more about their mysterious sensei, and glanced curiously at the smiling masked man. With a sigh, Naruto began to explain. He's Kakashi Hitaki, one of the most renowned Jonin of Konoha and all the elemental nations. He was the student of the 4th Hokage and the first man to ever graduate from the academy at the age of 5 and make Chunin by the age of 6. He became a Jonin at the age of 13. He is one of the few true prodigies this village has ever had. Naruto paused before continuing with obvious reluctance. There's no way we're gonna be able to beat him one-on-one. He's just too strong, unfortunately. The blonde looked like he had swollen a lemon as he faced his teammates. Kakashi grinned underneath his mask as he saw his sensei's son's reaction and allowed a shred of hope to shine through his earlier pessimistic thoughts of them failing the exam. Naruto had just given them the golden clue. They couldn't beat him one-on-one after all, and if the calculating look on Sasuke's face was anything to go by, then he knew that at the very least the rumored Uchiha prodigy had also begun to figure out the hidden puzzle. When he glanced at the sour-looking blonde, he saw a sudden understanding in those oceanic eyes when they gazed back at him with a curious shine in them. It seems that 2 of the 3 have figured it out. Now then, if you're all done giving out my life biography, let's begin our little test, shall we? Now, begin. At his command, the 3 quickly fled to the shelter of the surrounding trees. Naruto and Kagemaru crouched down in the bushes and quietly begun to plan their next course of action. Hey boss, I think there's more to this than just getting those bells from boss Kakashi. Naruto nodded in agreement as he sensed for his hiding teammates and immediately locked on to Sasuke's chakra signature, who was easier to find than Sakura's weaker signature. It was practically non-existent. Yeah, you're right. Besides, if I know that bastard, there's some hidden message he wants us to figure out. He likes to test his look underneath. All the damn time. The blonde grumbled as he indicated for the black dog to follow his lead. A few trees to his left hid Sasuke, who was deep in thought he had failed to notice the duo sneak up on him. Yo, bastard, you should pay more attention to your surroundings, ya know. Kakashi. Sensei could have snuck up on you and you'd be a goner for sure. Naruto mused aloud as he appeared on a branch next to the scowling Uchiha with Kagemaru keeping lookout on the forest floor. What do you want, loser? This is test, remember. Naruto scratched his cheek as he voiced his earlier suspicions to the raven-haired boy, who he was reluctant to admit was pretty sharp when it came to figuring out things. Yeah. About that. There's something more to this, but I can't seem to figure out what exactly. Sasuke nodded grimly at the same conclusion he had reached as well. Yes, there is something here we are missing. There must be a purpose to wanting us to fight over those bells. It's almost as if he's pitting us against each other on purpose. That's it. The pair of genin both exclaimed in unison with wide grins, or in Sasuke's case, a slightly more friendly smirk. It's a teamwork exercise. So to pass it, we need to work together. Sasuke, go get Sakura and let her know the plan. I'm going to create an opening for the two of you, so hurry up and go. Wait. Loser, why'd I have to go get her? I can create a better distraction. Naruto grinned mischievously before wagging a finger at the frowning Uchiha's face. No can do, bastard. She won't listen to a word I say, but if you suggest it she'll do whatever you say in a heartbeat. With a scowl and sigh, Sasuke conceded defeat. The blonde was right. Sakura wouldn't question him like she would Naruto. Fine, but don't mess this up, loser. We may only get one shot at this. We don't have a lot of time left. A foxy grin was his only answer and the whiskered boy was out of sight. He's a total idiot, but he's at least a competent shinobi. Sasuke mumbled before searching out his female team mate. Naruto growled angrily as he flipped out of Kakashi's reach once again. It was like a game of keep away. The blonde would land briefly on the ground before having to spring back up into the air to avoid another sweeping kick from reaching him. Yet, every time he went on the offensive, the silver-haired man would easily lean back and dodge any punch or kick sent in his direction. The most infuriating part was that Kakashi had taken up his old habit of reading his book while sparring again. He really hated the guy sometimes. Touching back down on the ground once more, Naruto pushed off hoping to get him with a nice round house kick, but watched as he ducked under his outstretched leg. A snarl escaped the blonde as he lashed out with another powerful fist, but just like his previous attacks, Kakashi just moved out of reach. Damn it. Quick dodging and fight me like a man. Kakashi chuckled as he narrowly sighed. Stepped another set of fist hurling at him. If Naruto cooled down enough he could easily be forcing him to put up his book, but the blonde was still too easily riled up for him to remain calm long enough. Maybe when he hits puberty, he'll settle down more. Kakashi hoped as he popped up behind the frustrated whiskered boy and smacked him on the head. Maybe if you didn't get so angry so easily, you might actually land a hit. The moment the Jonin had reached the blonde's back, Kakashi was forced to leap away from a flaming ball of fire launched toward him. A genin shouldn't be able to use elemental jutsus, Kakashi thought in alarm as he turned to face his black-haired possible future student. Sasuke, where did you learn how to use a fire release jutsu? With a smirk, the boy answered him, it was one of the few things my father actually taught me. Well, it is very impressive for someone of your age to be able to do elemental manipulation. So I guess now we move on to lesson number 2 of shinobi tactics, ninjutsu. Sasuke had narrowly dodged away from a quick stream of water shooting out from the nearby river right behind the silver-haired shinobi. Kakashi had the young Uchiha on the defensive until a certain blonde menace reminded him he was still there. You forgot I was here, didn't you, bastard? Naruto retorted as he threw several shuriken toward the tall man. Sakura, Kagemaru now. A blur of black raced toward the fighting trio and tackled a greatly surprised Jonin who ended up being pushed into a springe trap.net. Now entangled in the black mesh, Kakashi realized that those three had actually used something he thought was going to take a while to do, teamwork. Well, I guess now I have to pass them, but I can't let myself look this bad. I'm impressed, you three actually work together. Now we have one more lesson. Number 3 of shinobi tactics, genjutsu. Swirling leaves surrounded the trio of genin prospects and several screams alerted Kakashi that he had managed to get them all with his demonic mirage genjutsu. After quickly releasing himself from his confinement, Kakashi strolled casually toward his horrified students. No, you monster. My ramen. Naruto wailed the loudest in sheer terror, before falling to stunned daze on the floor. I don't even want to know what exactly that idiot is seeing. Sensei, you have one weird kid. Sasuke. No, Sakura shrieked and shortly after fainted from whatever it was she saw. I might have overdone it a bit. Itachi, you bastard, come back here. With a swift chop to the back of his head, Kakashi knocked out the last of the Uchiha. That was a close one. Note to self. Don't ever place a revenge-bent pre-teen into a genjutsu and get all of them up to speed with genjutsus in general. Now with 3 out of commission students, 2 of which were passed out unconscious, Kakashi hauled his students toward the wooden stumps with the help of a very baffled Kagemaru. The Jonin tied up Naruto on the middle post, and he laid the other 2 against the remaining stumps. Kakashi ate his lunch a few feet in front of them and after a while realized that Naruto still hadn't come out of his comatose state. Rummaging through his vest, Kakashi pulled out a small scroll and released its contents. A steaming bowl of miso ramen laid before him and with an exasperated sigh, he wafted the bowl under the stunned blonde's face. The reaction was immediate and Naruto grabbed the bowl out of Kakashi's extended hand as if it were a lifeline. "My beautiful ramen. Never again will we be separated by them. Those stupid vegetables will never have you." A twitch had developed over the silver-haired man's visible eye at the display. How did he turn out like this? He seemed fine as a child. Where did I go wrong? A figurative cloud of despair formed over the wallowing silver-haired man. Kagemaru, who watched the drama from his spot beside his boss, shook his head in disbelief at the idiots he swore his loyalty to before returning to his own meal Kakashi had provided for him. No use in letting a perfectly good steak go to waste over those 2. A few short minutes later, Sasuke and Sakura woke up to very surprising scene. The 3rd member of their squad was cursing and chasing around the large, black wolf-looking dog who wore a dark red, almost maroon-looking, headband on his neck like a scarf. In the animal's mouth was a bowl of ramen, that surprisingly didn't spill as the canine raced around the training ground keeping the bowl out of the blonde's aggravated reach. Yet, the award of most shocking scene had to go to their supposed Jonin. Sensei, who sat to the side of the wooden posts they were reclining on, in a fetal position with a dark cloud overhead. The man was shedding tears and rambling on about blondes, ramen, and being a disgrace. They both came to the realization that if they passed, they would both be stuck with the strange pair. Going back to the academy wasn't starting to look so bad, yet that did mean being behind the others and that was not a something Sasuke was willing to do. Heaving a sigh, Sasuke stood and went over to their sensei to try and get him out of his sudden depression. Seeing what the love of her life was doing, Sakura rose and went over to help him. Once Kakashi had shaken off his gloomy mood, and Naruto held once again his precious bowl of ramen, the Jonin announced his decision. "None of you actually got a bell, but you did work together so I'll let you guys try again after you have your lunch." Before the one-eyed man could say any more, he heard the distinct sound of tinkling bells. "About that Kakashi. Sensei, Kagemaru and I have the bells. He got them off of you when Sakura let the net loose," Naruto said with a cocky grin as he jingled the 2 bells in his hand teasingly. Hiding his shock, Kakashi eyed his young brother with a new light. He knew that Naruto and Sasuke had to have been the ones to instigate the whole team. Working thing. Sakura would never willingly follow Naruto unless Sasuke did. The little brat was actually using his head. "Well, since Kagemaru is technically your partner, you only need 1 bell. So who do you choose to give the other 2? One final attempt to see if the blonde had actually grasped the concept of the entire test. Kakashi waited eagerly for his reply. The remaining members of Team 7 were also impatiently waiting for their teammate's decision. Sasuke hoped that their semi-rivalry and barely existent friendship would sway the blonde's decision to give him the bell. Sakura on the other hand was dreading the outcome. She was seriously regretting voicing out loud that she disliked him and curse her big mouth. Well, it wouldn't be any fun if I didn't have any competition, so I guess I would give it to the bastard, but I don't want to be mean to Sakura and force her to go back to the academy. So I'll give you a choice, sensei. You pass all of us or I burn this. Naruto with a cheeky grin and smug eyes held up a familiar orange book in his gloved hand. Once again, surprised by the blonde's actions, Kakashi shook his head in amazement. When did the little brat get to be so devious? With a chuckle, Kakashi nodded his head. All right, fair enough. Though you didn't have to threaten my book, I would have passed all of you if you had simply asked for all of you to pass. One for all and all for one, no? A stunned silence fell upon the training ground as the trio of newly minted genin tried to wrap their minds around the sudden development. This entire test was to see if you'd be willingly to work together and sacrifice your own needs for those of your team mates. Kakashi directed their gazes toward a stone memorial a few feet away from their wooden stumps. All of those whose name is written on that stone have given up their lives for their comrades, for their families, and for the sake of the village. Those who don't follow the rules are scum, but those who abandon their friends are worse than scum. If there is one lesson I want you to learn, it is that. He paused and glanced at his awestruck students before continuing. Starting today, Team 7 is on active duty. Meet here at 7 o'clock for our first assignment. Congratulations, Team 7, you pass. Naruto's response was immediate and, with a happy yell, tackled the eye, smiling Jonin into a tight bear hug. I pass, I pass, I pass? Ya no? Sasuke smirked as he watched the display and allowed his smirk to morph into a small smile. Sakura was beaming in joy and was greatly relieved to know she wouldn't be separated from Sasuke, though after the blonde's actions, she was also happy to know that Naruto didn't dislike her in return. As Kakashi tried to pry the whiskered boy off of him, he managed to see the expressions on his other two students' faces and couldn't help but remember his own genin exam. Now as he watched them he knew one thing. He was going to be in for a hell of a ride with his own Team 7. Naruto stomped after a very clean looking Sasuke and Sakura, growling, "Finally, we finished that stupid mission. Next time you guys carry that hell spawned cat." A certain fuming blonde, who was 3 months old, had large cuts and scratches on his previously scar-free tan face as he awaited another mission to finish for the day. Kakashi added, standing in front of the third Hokage and the missions desk, "Relax Naruto, we can get an easy mission next so you can heal up all your little battle wounds." With his arms folded across his chest, Naruto pouted, "Don't even start sensei, this could have been done hours ago, but you didn't let me bring Kagemaru to help out on this assignment. What fun would that be if you let your ninkin do all the work for you? I think Kagemaru needed a break." The older man seated in front of them gave the group a wry look before turning back to the scroll that was in front of him. "Well Team 7, you have an option between getting groceries for Elder Makoto or walking the Inuzuka's hounds, and there's also..." With a loud cry, Naruto cut the man off, saying, No more lame-ass missions, old man. I want a real mission. A C rank at the very least." Standing over him, Kakashi sighed with annoyance and gave the obnoxious preteen a hard smack on the top of the head. "Later on, I'm going to hear about this. Sorry Lord Hokage. He tends to be a bit of an idiot at times." "Hey." Before the blonde could defend herself any further, someone else entered the discussion. Iruka lectured the young boy, "Naruto, you're only still a rookie genin. A C rank is for more experienced teams. Yeah, I get why you make all the genin squads do these stupid D rank missions and all that, but I believe my team has enough teamwork and experience to handle at least a rather easy C rank. Come on, old man. We're real ninja now. Give us a challenge." Observing the blonde fussing over receiving a mission upgrade, the Hokage grinned. Hiruzen knew that Kakashi and Naruto by themselves could take care of a C rank, so why not show partiality and give in to the blonde's tirades once more? "Alright. Naruto, you wish to prove that you are now a true ninja. Very well, I will assign your team an escort C rank mission. Please bring Tazuna in." The door opened to reveal their client in all his sake drowned glory just a short while after Naruto stopped his victory dance. Standing before them with a sulky expression on his face was a tall, broad-shouldered man with skin tone darker than usual for Konoha. The man's calloused hands revealed that he worked hard all day, despite the obvious indication that he was intoxicated from the way he drank from the bottle in his hand. This man was quite the contradiction. The man, whose name they took to be Tazuna, gave his ninja protection a once-over before casting a dejected glance at his bottle. "This stuff must be stronger than I thought. All I see are a bunch of kids. You sure the short blonde one with a stupid look on his face is a real ninja?" The room, which was once cheerful, was suddenly silent. Everyone acquainted with the fair-haired man knew that he detested remarks made about his absence of growth spurt. As soon as Naruto lunged towards their latest customer, Kakashi seized his collar, thereby averting any additional assault attempts. "Let me at him, I'll show him a real ninja." Kakashi chastised his misbehaving pupil, little brother, saying, "Naruto, you can't kill the client. A few bruises never killed nobody." The elderly man said, "I'm the great expert bridge builder Tazuna. I expect you to get me to my home in Wave Country safe and sound, brats. I paid good money for this," showing little interest in the drama playing out in front of him. He then took another swig of his sake. The man looked skeptical, but Kakashi reassured him, "There is no need to worry, I will also be going on this mission with my students and I am a jonin. I assure you are in safe hands." Kakashi then turned to face his pouting students, who didn't appreciate being undervalued. "Now guys, I expect all of you at the gate in an hour. Prepare for a long-term mission at the very least for 2 weeks worth of supplies." Aye, Captain Sensei." Naruto waved cheekily to his teammates, Kakashi included, before the two, much to the annoyance of the Hokage and Iruka, went out the window. Hiruzen gave the remaining genin a hard look and an icy glare. Never leave using a window in my presence, understood? With a quick nod of agreement, Sasuke and Sakura exited the room to gather their essentials, but not before pledging to trade some sharp words with their blonde teammate and sensei. Their presence together was oppressive. Simply put, they refused to pack up and go. Gaara calmed the overbearing pair, or rather just Naruto, who was acting very mother hen. Like at the moment, saying, "I'll be just fine by myself. Your team is waiting for you." Naruto bemoaned to the frustrated Jonin, who was not in the slightest hurry to begin their mission. "Make sure you eat enough ramen during the day, okay? Don't try any experimental seals without me there too. We've never left you all alone before. I don't know if I'll be able to do this, Kakashi." Once again trapped in his blonde brother's firm embrace, Gaara made unsuccessful attempts to free herself from the slightly taller boy. Gaara forced the silver-haired man to assist him, making pleasurable eye contact with him as he watched the two with amusement. As he padded over to the small gathering in front of the estate entrance, Akito, in all his red-furred glory, chirped in, "Yo bosses. You should be hurrying over to your team now, don't ya think?" Giving his ninkin a thank-you glance, the short silver head nodded and attempted to lead them out the big doors once more. "Don't worry about little boss guys, sis and I will take good care of him. So Kagemaru, it's up to you to look after the other two bosses, okay?" The three shinobi were unaware that a dog could scowl, but the big black wolf dog was unmistakably sneering at his younger sibling. Kagemaru scoffed at the smaller dog, saying, "Akito. Of course I'm going to look after the bosses. Since when is it your place to give me orders, pup? Geez, chill, alright. I was just saying, no need to get your fur all in a bunch." Kakashi, accustomed to the dog's arguments, returned his focus to his brother with silver hair. "Gaara, you may think we're being a little overbearing, but it's for due cause. This mission will be much longer than what we're used to being away from you. It may take up to a month depending how fast the bridge builder completes his work." Kakashi looked at the boys and smiled before going on. "Normally you're the more sensible one of the two, so I trust you to hold down the fort, alright? And please make sure Akito doesn't get into any more trouble. The last thing I need is to return and have an angry Inuzuka at my door complaining about my amorous canine again." This gave the Jonin with russet fur with a frustrated expression. Akito was at least decent enough to appear embarrassed, and the dog appeared to be blushing. Akito pouted and gave his older brother a cunning, wolfish smile, saying, "It's not my fault the ladies can't get enough of me. Besides, at the rate Kagemaru's going, the family isn't gonna have any pups anytime soon unless I step in and take charge." The insult made the black fur bristle. Naruto, sensing that his canine companion was about to go all out for a charge, gave a sharp whistle to attract their attention. "Alright, break it up, guys. Akito, stop harassing Kagemaru. He'll get himself a girlfriend when he's good and ready. Also, you need to stop sniffing around Kiba's dogs. You do know that if you manage to have puppies, they'll stay with the Inuzuka, right?" With alarm, forest green eyes enlarged. "What? No way, I would be the sire, so shouldn't I get to keep them?" A mop of blonde hair disagreed, shaking its head. "No, sorry Akito. The Inuzuka have clan laws that all pups born to them are by legal rights theirs, and so they keep them. That's why we try to keep you and Kagemaru away from their females as much as possible." Akito, who was obviously defeated, gave in and reluctantly promised to cease using his masculine strength on the Inuzuka girls. "This sucks. Now I can't get a mate and I'll die a virgin wolf. Dog. Life, why is it so cruel?" The remaining dog and shinobi perspire at the russet wolf's mischievous behavior. "I find it incomprehensible that Gaara, of all people, ended up with such a dumb ninkin, while Naruto, the blonde threat, gets Kagemaru, who is essentially Gaara's wolf. Dog counterpart. Okay, so. Thinking about it, Akito is similar to Naruto, but more twisted in the direction of his species' females. These four are really great matchups." As he watched Naruto and Gaara attempt to stop the wolf. Dog brothers from fighting once more, Kakashi pondered. If nothing else, Naruto and Gaara's arguments never end in blows. "Naruto, Kagemaru, it's time to go now. We're actually much later than I was planning on being, so I'll take us there." Naruto and Kagemaru moved to Kakashi's side after ensuring that all of his storage scrolls were in their designated spots inside his black jacket. "Tell Konohamaru and Hoshi that we'll see them once we get back. We'll go out for ramen. We'll be back before you now at Gaara." In a flurry of silver, yellow, and black, the three members of Team 7 departed with one last farewell. The silver-haired boy, disguised, let out a sigh and turned to face his ninkin partner. The vast estate felt eerily empty for the first time as an oppressive silence descended upon it. Gaara ran out of things to say and realized he didn't have to, as he looked at his devoted companion. It's going to be very quiet around here without them around. When he wasn't allowing his hormones to get the better of him, Akito was actually quite intelligent and extremely understanding despite his Romeo ways. He would be okay as long as he had at least one living reminder that his family is by his side, even if his brothers were no longer with him and the house seemed a little more empty. He flourished in the quiet in Suna, but in Konoha the quiet meant he was by himself and his brothers were not around. The fact that Akito behaved so much like his blonde savior made him happy. With both of them around, the silence was never complete. "So boss, I think we should stop by that fancy kennel that just opened up in the civilian side of the village. I heard there was this hot poodle there that belongs to one of the Fire Daimoyo's wives. So she's definitely got the right pedigree." Like Naruto, Akito was not able to stay subdued for very long. They were 20 minutes late reaching the village gates, but who was keeping score? Their persistent tardiness was nothing new, but there was one rare novelty that Kakashi hardly ever saw coming together with his other two students in glum looking client. Naruto's petite girlfriend with blonde hair. "Ino, what are you doing here?" the scruffy boy asked, picking up his pace to catch up to the girl in the purple outfit. As she watched him and Kakashi Sensei approach with a mass of black fur and golden eyes, Ino let out a tiny puff of breath. The blonde was quick to step past him and cuddle Kagemaru's large head to her growing chest, saying, "I came to see you off for your first C-rank mission, idiot. Now who's this cutie next to you?" "Fortunate bastard," Naruto muttered to himself. Beneath that orange book he had already pulled out, he heard Kakashi's chuckles with amusement, and he knew the Jonin had heard him. His whiskered cheeks were lightly dusted with pink. "This is Kagemaru. He's my ninkin." Despite being aware that the creature was designed to eliminate humans, especially ninja, Ino persisted in her attempts to indulge the dark, furred wolf. Dog. "Ninkin? Like Akamaru?" "Yeah, except Kage's 10 times better than Akamaru and older too?" Ino looked at her fellow blonde with a smirky smile on her face. "Well, that's obvious, dummy. He's huge compared to Akamaru, who's still a puppy. Though, when did you get him? I never knew you had a dog, much less a ninkin." Naruto laughed nervously, giving himself a cheek scratch, and started to explain sheepishly. "Well, it was about 4 years ago. It's a really long story, Ino, and we're kinda already late for our mission, so how about I tell you all about it when I get back?" Ino stared at the whiskered boy with narrowed, sharp green eyes, then nodded. "All right, Whiskers, so I'll let you treat me to ramen once you're back and you can tell me about your mission and Kagemaru." After a sly smile and a farewell, the long-haired man with blonde hair disappeared into Konoha's bustling midday streets. Why does it seem like I'm going to regret not informing Ino about Kagemaru sooner? Naruto pondered for a moment before letting the unsettling thought go. When Naruto turned to face his teammates after sensing multiple eyes on him, he received a variety of looks. The arrogant bastard Kakashi was glaring at him, indicating the orange book he was holding before shifting his attention to Ino's dimming form. His face threatened to flush as he realized the meaning and body language of the Jonin. "As soon as I get the chance, I'm killing him." The other bastard, Sasuke, was just staring at the blonde's predicament with mild amusement and contempt. The boy with raven hair was defying him with a blonde glare, which made him smile even more smugly. Fortunately for Sasuke, he refrained from speaking and directed his attention to the wide road that lay ahead of them. Sakura's reaction now was the strangest. For some strange reason, she appeared quite irritated. However, Naruto really lacked the courage to try and eavesdrop on the pinkette, preferring to let her ruminate on her thoughts. She was silent in an unusual way for such a young child, and Naruto hoped she wouldn't ask questions about his relationship with Ino. He was genuinely reluctant to bring up the topic with his fellow blonde and had no idea what precisely the two of them were classified as. He was trembling just thinking about asking Ino to be his girlfriend. But the brief respite didn't last as long as he had hoped, and Sakura decided to ask the sudden questions of everyone gathered. "Naruto, are you and Ino pig dating?" Once more, pretending to be a tomato's shade, Naruto attempted to project ignorance and naivety. The blonde, fearing that she would see through his cool exterior, asked, "Huh? What gives you that idea, Sakura?" Instead of looking at her, he began to leave the village, inquiring about the boy's response. Tazuna and the rest of Team 7 trailed behind the red-faced blonde. The girl with pink hair noticed a twitch on her large forehead. "Oh, I don't know. Just that she insisted on walking with me to the gate after I told her about our mission." And there's also the fact that the two of you have a date once we get back. That's awfully suspicious, don't you think? Now that it occurred to him, although they appeared to be a good match, as far as he was aware, neither of them had the confidence to ask the other one out. But the talk he was having now made him think of the one he was having with the guys the day following the graduation exam. Kiba yelled, "Yo, Naruto! Wait up!" and waved frantically across the street in an attempt to attract the blonde's attention. "Kiba, Shikamaru, Choji, what's up guys?" Naruto asked, pausing in his tracks and chirping. He replied with a long sigh and bided his time until the three caught up. "Do you know how much of a drag it is to look for you? We've been looking for you since yesterday." A tense laugh came out of the boy with whiskers. "Aw yeah, I passed the test, so I just left and went to get some ramen and just took a nap at home. Nothing special, so why were guys hunting me down?" Though the young Nara saw right through the blonde's nonchalant fa section aide, she chose not to confront him about it. It was Naruto's right to have his secrets. He knew eventually that he would tell him. Kiba said, giving the blonde a mischievous smile, "We just wanted to know how you did on the exam. Also to let you know that Ino definitely has a thing for you." The memory of that specific revelation, which had only recently been confirmed after a protracted absence during which he had not seen any of his former academy allies or his longtime crush, made Naruto flush. Perhaps it was time to stop their spontaneous lunch dates of ramen and barbecue and start summoning the bravery to ask Ino out on a proper date. Naruto steered the awkward conversation towards the amused bridge builder, saying, "We're not dating. So let's drop the subject. How far is Wave Country from here, old man?" "About 3 days travel. It's just outside of Fire Country's borders." Sakura was upset about her blonde teammate's dismissal and wanted to know more about his relationship with Ino, but she quickly changed her mind after receiving a stern look from her sensei and focused on Naruto's chat with the client. One way or another, she was going to learn the truth. She was partnered with Naruto, and Ino could not dominate him. After more than 2 hours of steady walking, Naruto and Kakashi spotted a small, innocuous puddle a few feet ahead on the side of the dirt road. No rain had fallen for weeks. The ever-watchful Ninken, Kagemaru, saw the faint traces of chakra on the puddle's surface right away. A comical thought squirmed itself into his consciousness and refused to go away. Kagemaru approached the puddles with a stroll, lifted his back leg, and released a steady stream of yellow liquid. Sakura squealed in surprise and looked away quickly. Only the Jonin was able to contain his laughter, leaving the blonde in a giggling mess while Naruto and Kakashi failed miserably. Sasuke scoffed in irritation, then noticed the dog's subliminal warning. Since it hadn't rained in a while, the puddle was strange and suspicious. The young Uchiha picked up his slow pace to match that of Tazuna and Sakura, standing watch until the intruders revealed themselves. 2 towering figures emerged from the enigmatic water as the group passed the yellow puddles. Their swift action and deadly intent sent the novice shinobi into a state of paralysis. Kakashi's bulky form was encircled by spiked chains that tightened until they applied excessive pressure. Genin was horrified and the young Jonin Sensei was ripped to bloody shreds. One of the attackers sneered with unmistakable bloodlust. "Filled pleasure, one down. Who's next?" The man growled with rage and lunged toward the young boy and dog as soon as he saw Kagemaru standing guard in front of a frozen blonde in shock. "This is for taking a piss on me, mutt." Upon witnessing the attack, Naruto compelled his body to twitch, and seemingly without conscious thought, he parried the man's raised fist and executed a powerful kick to his head, knocking the ninja out cold. After successfully neutralizing one of the 2 attackers, Naruto turned to face his other teammates, glad that Sasuke had already taken care of the other ninja. Another sight that brought relief was seeing different logs strewn where Kakashi's torn limbs had been. He was able to change out on time. I was on the verge of tears. The bastard was unable to issue a warning or anything. With his growing annoyance and shaky remnants of fear gone, Naruto used his Ninken to drag the big shinobi to where Sasuke and Kakashi, who were unharmed, were tying up his partner. Kakashi commended the solemn-looking blonde, saying, "Good job, Naruto, in taking down your opponent." Distracted, Naruto nodded and gave up his load before approaching Sakura and Tazuna. "Sakura, you alright? You're shaking." The pinkette, shaking from fear, was startled out of her reverie by the abrupt question. The worry mirrored in oceanic blue eyes made her blush. Sakura became enraged with her own response and snapped. "Of course I'm not. We were just attacked by 2 ninjas, we could have been killed." Naruto recoiled at the loud declaration and moved a few feet away from the enraged girl. Naruto snapped back, This was just a taste of what we have to expect in the future. No need to get all worked up about it. Besides, we're ninja too. We're supposed to be able to handle any situation or else we'll die. It's as simple as that. You froze up and that's okay, but next time you might be on your own. You just have to train harder, and stop wasting time during practice. His leader and male teammate were both staring at him inquisitively. Oh no, they heard. The blonde approached Kakashi and said, Naruto, I agree with what you said, but couldn't you have worded it a bit nicer? She needs to learn to control her temper towards me. She's not the only one with a short fuse. I at least can tone it down. Sasuke gave the bearded boy a silent nod of agreement before shifting the topic. Anyways, loser, tell your dog not to take a piss on the enemy next time. I don't want to have to smell it the next time I have to tie them up. The boy with the raven head looked disgusted, and Naruto laughed. All Sasuke could do was glare at the blonde and his laughing ninkin. Sighing in defeat at the boy's antics, Kakashi turned back to face their client. The man had not spoken since the attack, which was awful. An expression of regret crossed the old man's face. Kakashi suspected he understood why. Tazuna, we need to have a little talk. The mist was growing more dense by the moment. He sensed the closing of 3 distinct chakras. His senses were acutely aware, his body tense. Someone was approaching too closely. There was enough rustling in the nearby brush to justify hurling a lethal kunai in its direction. It was a snow white rabbit. Strange, the summer was midsummer. Kakashi. Sensei. The Jonin ordered him to get down as soon as he finished speaking. Something whistled sharply through the area that had been their heads. The group was alerted by a thunk that a large sword was stuck in the thick trunk of a tree directly behind them. An easy going man crouched atop his massive weapon and said, well, I was expecting a Jonin, but not you copy ninja Kakashi Hitaki. No wonder those 2 idiots got killed. The sound of the voice next to him caused Naruto's older brother to stiffen. Ah, Zabuza Momochi, the demon of the mist. It's been quite a while since we've last met. The man with black hair and a bandaged face laughed sarcastically at the statement. It sounded almost like he was saying something he couldn't believe. 4 years and we meet again as enemies. How quaint, don't you think? Life's rather ironic. Kakashi looked at the man in front of them analytically and snorted. Team, form a protective barrier around Tazuna. I will deal with him. Naruto normally knew that his brother could handle himself, but there were 2 more people nearby with chakra signatures at the shinobi level that tickled his nerves. Even though Kakashi was good, he would struggle to defeat 3 strong ninja. Kakashi. Sensei, there are 2 more chakra signatures in the surrounding wood. What would you like us to do? Zabuza aimed his gaze at the boy with blonde hair who was standing near the ninja with silver hair. His abrupt shout made the 3 genin flinch. Oh, so you have a pretty adapt sensor on your team. That's very convenient. It's a shame he'll get cut down before he reaches his prime. Brats, come out. From the mist, 2 figures emerged, standing only a few inches taller than the 3 preteens. One had a black mask that resembled Kakashi's, and the other was a white-haired man. Both had on white hunter.nin masks. With a hint of wonder and reverence, the white-haired, masked boy said, Lord Kakashi, it is good to see you again. Naruto blurted out in shock, Lord? Who the devil calls Lord Kakashi? The man in question dismissed his genin's perplexed question with a nervous laugh at the title. I did say we'd meet again, didn't I, Kimimaro? The boy in the mask nodded and removed the black cloth covering his face. The young man's pale face now displayed a warm smile. Naruto, even more perplexed now, broke out of his formation and stalked in the direction of the 3 enemy shinobi and the Jonin. Whoa, hold on a second, Sensei, you know these guys? Before responding, Kakashi gave the blonde by his side a small glare. I'm forcing him to run laps until he collapses halfway back to Konoha as punishment for disobeying my orders. He pointed to the smaller figures next to the towering man and said, yes, I met them while on a mission to Kirigakure a few years back. This is Kimimaro and next to him is Haku. Kakashi looked back at the nin that had vanished. This here is one of Genin, Naruto. The other 2 are Sasuke and Sakura. With a nod of greeting, Sasuke and Naruto acknowledged the unfamiliar shinobi, while Sakura waved slightly. Tazuna stared in shock at the abrupt formalities and friendly greetings between the ninja, but his fear soon subsided and was replaced by confusion. Tazuna practically yelled at the shinobi, hold on. What exactly is going on here? Isn't this man here to kill me on behalf of Gato? Kakashi turned to face Zabuza, raising an eyebrow and casting a questioning glance. Zabuza sighed in frustration in return, then pulled his sword from the tree and slung it over his back. I can't actually bring myself to kill you, Sharingan Kakashi. The brat would have a bitch fit, and, more than likely, side with you over me. Even though, I have been taking care of his ungrateful ass for the past 4 years. Kimimaro calmly replied, Zabuza, I am grateful for what you've done for me, but if it came to blows between the two, I would be loyal to Lord Kakashi. The tall missing Nin nodded and dismissed the comment with a roll of his eyes. Zabuza appeared nearly melancholic over the loss of the money. Yeah, I know, brat. Now our mission was to take out the bridge builder, but since Hitaki's in charge of his protection, we'll have to call it quits. Damn shame too, we were going to get paid quite a few millions. Kakashi relaxed a little at his statement, and his team followed suit. It turned out that they wouldn't be facing off against an A-rank shinobi today. Naruto asked, so what do you plan to do now? That's a good question, shorty. Probably tag along with all of you and help fend off the next attempt made by the midget to off the old man. That guy is a complete lunatic, and once he finds out that I've quit, he'll be after my head as well as yours. After receiving a severe glare from his squad leader, Naruto, who appeared irritated by the shorty Commenda, knew not to raise a fuss. This is the one time he'll overlook it. It would be appreciated, Zabuza, if you join us. Our mission started off as a C rank, but as you can see it'll be bumped up to A rank. My genin may be good, but they're not ready for this level of fighting. In response, the black-haired shinobi said, yeah, this bunch looks like they're fresh cut out from that pansy academy you Konoha ninja have. Once they've earned a spot in the bingo book, then I'll acknowledge them as a true shinobi. He gave the preteen trio a long, hard look. The insult infuriated Sasuke and Naruto, but Sakura got to the punchline before them. Hey, our academy is not pansy, we're taught perfectly fine. With a snort, Zabuza started narrating to them about his difficult and gloomy early years. Compared to the Mist Village Academy, it is very weak in training their ninja. Our graduating exam involved fighting your classmates, and the last one standing moved on to genin. I was the reason they had to change the exam. Now it's as wimpy as the rest of the village's academies. He glared at the genin, making it writhe. There was a sudden unease in the air that Naruto sensed, something strange. Hey, why did you say you were the reason they changed the exam? What did you do? Sakura gave him a warning glance, but she said nothing because her curiosity overcame her. With an expression of indifference, Sasuke stood in between them, but his dark eyes glistened with curiosity. They turned to face Kakashi after hearing him sigh. Zabuza earned his nickname, Demon of the Mist, because at his academy graduation he killed all of his classmates and even some of the instructors. As you can imagine, he was just your age when this happened a long time ago. As the years passed, he joined the 7 Swordsmen of the Mist and he never lost his moniker. I guess you can say he grew into it. With a silent gasp of surprise, Naruto swallowed the growing lump in his throat. What sort of upbringing did this man have? He studied the tall man wearing bandages in front of him for a long time. He had a dejected expression in his eyes. If you weren't paying close attention, you wouldn't even notice that it was there. This wasn't no devil. Naruto began, drawing attention from everyone in the group with his, "That is awful." The blonde paused and looked up at the sky with a tiny smile. You love to live your life based on a label. I don't know why you did what you did, but I do know that you are no demon. You're a human being just like everyone else. You make mistakes, you cry, and you said you wouldn't acknowledge us until we're in the bingo book. Well, I'll get in there before you know it, and then you'll have to respect me as a ninja. Believe it, he said, determination hardening his soft cerulean blue eyes as he focused on the swordsman. In the little clearing, there was a startled silence. With his powerful back to them, Zabuza turned his back on the others. He looked up at the fading sky, too, leaning back a little in contemplation. It was almost impossible to see the first stars of the night. For a moment, a cloud moved, and the moon briefly appeared. A glimmer in the shadowy sky. The only person who heard Zabuza's whispers were Kakashi and herself. Brat, you really are something else. The missing nin turned to face them again and began to walk past them with his shoulders straightened. Well, hurry up, brats, we don't have all night and I'm starving. Hey bridge builder, where's your damn house? The peaceful descent of the night created the appearance that everything was well. The moon shone through a clear night sky, illuminating the shimmering sea that encircled Waves Nation. The night's music was the sound of crickets and other nocturnal animals. But the busy household, perched above the peaceful shoreline on a raised platform of steel beams and wood planks, was oblivious to their chorus. Over the tunes of the night creature came the sounds of several voices. Naruto angrily muttered, "I wanted that last piece of sushi, Sasuke, you bastard." Across the smirking Uchiha at the dinner table. "Well then you should have been quicker, loser." "Naruto, don't go yelling at Sasuke." The intimidating missing Nin yelled, "Brat, you're getting spit all over my food," at the blonde who had launched himself across the table toward the object of his annoyance. Had it not been for two strong hands that firmly strangled him around the throat, he would have succeeded. Haku made an attempt to appease the older man by saying, "Master Zabuza, you shouldn't hold the boy by the neck like that. Hey, let my cute little student breathe, he's turning blue." Kimimaro continued, "Listen to Lord Kakashi, Zabuza. Naruto needs air." At last Zabuza relaxed his hold on the blonde, but not completely, when a deep growl emanated from the big black dog sitting next to her. After realizing that the white-haired brat and Hitaki were right and that Naruto was beginning to look like a blueberry, Zabuza reluctantly let the boy fall onto the floor in a heap of gasping pieces. Air had never tasted so precious and sweet. "Damn it, old man, don't go choking people like that." Zabuza yelled, "What did you just call me? I ain't old, shorty," in response to the statement. This nickname incited a glare that irritated the swordsman even more, to which Naruto snickered. Kakashi grinned broadly and said, Now, settle down you two. We're trying to have a nice dinner here." The arguing couple eventually settled down and eagerly went back to their respective meals. Amused by the shinobi's antics, Tazuna and Tsunami, the young girl with beautiful black hair and the bridge builder's daughter, laughed happily. Who knew they were such exuberant individuals? Despite the fact that they've been trained to kill. Tazuna ventured to ask Kakashi, who had finished his meal and had taken out an all-too-familiar orange book, "I wanted to ask earlier, but why did you still continue the mission even though I lied about the request details?" Naruto stood up and began to speak passionately before Kakashi could respond. "What kind of question is that? Not doing the right thing when you know you can do something about it is a coward's way out," he exclaimed. The blonde's loud declaration was met with a fist that hit the wooden table quite forcefully. A tiny voice murmured, "It doesn't matter, you all will die anyway. Gato will kill you," startling everyone and making them turn to face the trembling boy seated next to Tazuna. The blonde shot back, "Thanks for the vote of confidence, kid," with a sarcastic undertone. "You shouldn't be venting your frustrations on the people who are the only ones keeping you, your mother, and your grandfather alive." The little boy scoffed bitterly, "How stupid can you be? You think you're some kind of hero? There's no such thing. If you don't want to die, you should go back to where you came from. None of you stand a chance against someone like Gato." Naruto squinted at the boy with the hat, his eyes cold and blue. "Is that so? What do you suggest we have done then? Leave your grandfather to fend for himself? You're really starting to get on my nerves, kid. You want us to leave so bad? Then tell me something first. Should we leave before or after Gato comes for your grandfather's head?" With composure, Naruto began to move toward the bridge builder and his grandson. The blonde had stood behind the bridge builder as he spoke, thinking, "Perhaps I should save Gato the trouble and get rid of the old man before he sends more people." Before anyone could blink, a dangerously gleaming kunai was pressed up against Tazuna's tanned neck. The kunai was brought closer, and a look of alarming fear appeared in the brown eyes of the young wave boy. "If your grandfather's gone, then Gato will have no reason to send any more ninja. Is that what you want, Inari? To have your grandfather die, so you can continue on living without having to fear Gato coming after you?" The boy asked. "Make your choice, Inari. We leave and let your grandfather fall to Gato, or I end all of this tortuous wait for you right now." All of the people in the room were stunned silently. Nobody had anticipated the typically upbeat and cheerful boy to pose a threat to a small child and an elderly man. Though Kakashi was aware of the message the blonde was attempting to impart to the young child, he was afraid Naruto would go too far. The blonde interrupted the silver-haired man again, this time with a tense warning, "Naruto." Oceanic eyes flashed dangerously toward the silenced Jonin, then returned to level a serious glare at the shocked boy sitting in front of him. "No, sensei. Inari has to learn that in this life, there is no place for those who give up and wallow in their own pity. Kid, you got to understand that if no one stands up, if no one tries to be a hero, then nothing will change." With a deep sigh, Naruto released the older man, sounding almost defeated as he let go of his weapon. Only those who are willing to sacrifice everything are able to bring about change. So stop your crying and man up. Life's not fair, so learn to deal with it. Drawing Inari's cloudy gaze to his mother and grandfather, Naruto gestured toward the stunned bridge builder and his daughter. "You at least still have two people who are with you. Be thankful you never spent a day in your life alone with no one waiting for you at home. In Konoha, we are taught to fight, not for ourselves, but for our village. For those people who are so precious to us that we are willing to lay down our lives, so that they can live long lives and be happy. Naruto grinned bittersweetly and let out another sigh, turning his attention from the transfixed table to the opened window where he was staring at the moon's reflection on the ocean. Naruto's tanned face softly smiled as he said, "One day, you will be given the option to either hide and cry away all your problems or stand up and fight for what you believe in and those you love. And sometimes, fighting until your last breath is the only option there is left." Naruto turned away from the table, suddenly self-conscious, and finally aware that all eyes were on him. He stalked out of the room, acting as though his life depended on it. The ever-faithful Ninken, Kagemaru, trailed quickly behind his retreating blonde boss. The sound of the front door closing was heard throughout the quiet home. Everyone's features were lighted by thoughtful and contemplative faces. Naruto had a talent for language. Tears streaming down his face, Inari got to his feet and ran out of the dining room and up the stairs toward his room before anyone could say anything or comment. Tsunami got up to follow him, but she was stopped by her father's hold on her wrist. She understood from the gloomy expression on his old face that her son needed to be left alone, and she sat down again, her own tears getting closer to spilling out of them. "Shouldn't you go after your brat?" Zabuza asked, clearing his throat before turning to face the thoughtful man with silver hair. Kakashi gently raised his head. "No, Naruto has to face his own demons just as Inari does right now. I'll talk to him tomorrow. The best thing to do right now is to just let the boys cool down on their own." In an attempt to gain some insight into the blonde's abrupt attitude shift, Zabuza remarked slyly, "The brat must have suffered quite a deal." Near the end of his brief speech, he had the appearance of a battle-weary veteran. Understanding what the swordsmen were trying to say, Kakashi chose to give in to the man's curiosity in the hopes that his words would improve the relationship between his students. Naruto is an orphan. What he just said to Inari, he has been telling to himself day after day, after he realized that crying over the injustice in his life wasn't getting him anywhere. Since I've known him, Naruto isn't the type to easily give up when things get rough. While Kakashi was sharing Naruto's story with the others, the blonde was fiercely trying to get rid of all of his negative thoughts. He was ignoring Kagemaru's worries, who gave in to his pleas and took up his sentinel role, keeping an eye on the distraught blonde. Another tree said, "Damn, that little brat got me thinking all wrong now. Your mother and father gave their lives to save the village and to keep you safe, Naruto." He thought of the picture of his father, beaming, holding his gorgeous, expectant mother. His jaw became tense. Wooden splinters shot up from where his fist struck the tree trunk, proclaiming, "They're heroes. That stinking little kid doesn't know what he's saying. They called you after Jiraiya's book's hero. They wanted you to grow up to be just like him, a champion." Clutching his bleeding hand to his chest, he leaned against the battered trunk and exclaimed, "Aw, damn it, I won't give up, just like the Naruto in the book did." The blonde was about to smash his injured hand in the wooden trunk when someone said, "You should really stop doing that before you end up losing that hand, kid." Zabuza and the boy with white hair arrived. The black wolf hybrid was agitated by him. Naruto asked the approaching team, "Kimimaro, right?" "Yes, and you should let me take a look at your hand. I know some medical jutsus that will help." Naruto glanced down at his blood-stained right fist and his suspicious-looking Ninken before turning back to face the idly standing teenager. "You don't have to. It'll be fine in a little bit. Are the others done with their dinner?" Kimimaro stood in front of the guarded dog and preteen, perspiring, hands in his pockets. "No, Lord Kakashi is keeping them occupied at the moment. Yes, the bastard was once more telling people what was his business. I'm going to have to talk to him briefly about keeping some things to myself." "I see. Why aren't you inside listening to him?" The boy with white hair had an intriguing expression in his eyes. "Some things are best heard from the original source." Naruto caught wind of the main request. He ignored Kagemaru's warning cry and said, "Yeah, sure, ask away," leaning his back against the tree and waiting for Kimimaro to pose his query. "Earlier, you said that only those who are willing to sacrifice everything are able to bring about change. What is it that you are trying to change?" "That's what you want to know?" Naruto asked, showing his skepticism and surprise at the same time. With a nod, the blonde let out a sigh and looked away from the taller boy. "I wasn't really talking about myself at that moment, but my father. He helped save our village when I was just a little kid, and he gave everything to the village. His blood, sweat, tears, and finally his life. Just so that he could change the fate of many people, especially mine. Naruto tightly clenched his fist as he gave up everything just to give us a chance. My mother too, she fought alongside him that night and gave her last breath by his side. At this point, Naruto appeared to be lost in his own world and had turned his back on Kimimaro. Sometimes, I wondered what would have happened if they had been cowards and fought to live instead of fighting so that others could. When I learned the truth of their deaths, I vowed that I would never give any less than they did. I would work until I was the best. Until I was a hero in the eyes of others. A tense silence ensued for a moment before Kimimaro spoke. Your father was the Yondaime Hokage, correct? Uncontrollably, Naruto tensed up in fear. Oh no, I thought I had disclosed anything that would have connected him. The blonde debated with himself whether or not to be honest with the boy. Even though he wasn't from the village, he could still tell the wrong person and let Konoha know. Naruto quietly sideways glanced at the boy, knowing that the boy with the white hair would be able to tell if he also lied. He did, however, appear to respect Kakashi, and he promised to look after the man if he told Kakashi that Kimimaro knew. Naruto laughed nervously and said, "Ah, yeah, he was. What gave it away?" A sly smile of amusement adorned the pale boy's face. You spoke of a night, so I assumed you meant a single event. The only thing that came to mind was the attack of the nine-tailed fox. Well, that and I have seen a photo of the fourth Hokage from an older version of the bingo book. You resemble him quite a bit. It was simply putting two and two together. Naruto gave him his signature smile and then burst out laughing. You're the first to ever relate me to him by a picture. Kimimaro had surprise in her emerald eyes. You mean to say that your village doesn't know who you are? The blonde nodded and laughed. Yup. It's best this way though. Kakashi will have a fit once I tell him you know. He really doesn't want other people to find out, something about multiple death threats and shit like that. Even my team mates don't know, so I'll appreciate it if you keep this a secret. Kagemaru added an extra incentive by giving his fiercest growl and glare. That appeared to be the solution. Kimimaro gave a numb nod. Just what have I gotten myself into? The dining room was silent, tense. All that could be heard were Tsunami and Sakura's shuffling and rummaging while they cleaned and washed the dishes. Before long, the cacophonous sounds subsided and they resumed their seats, having completed their task. Sakura cast a weary glance between her black-haired teammate and her sensei. She couldn't help but think about their recent, intense argument. The room was silent and in shock after Kakashi had completed explaining Naruto's abrupt outburst, until Sasuke spoke. There's something that's been bothering me. Zabuza called you Copy Ninja Kakashi and Sharingan Kakashi. Why? I know for a fact you aren't a member of the Uchiha. Kakashi replied nonchalantly, lifting his headband and showing the red sphere to the perplexed preteen. Oh, that would be because I have a Sharingan eye. Sasuke let out a startled gasp. With a nearly enraged voice, Sasuke asked, How did you get that eye, Kakashi? The silver-haired man replied with a sigh, Calm down, Sasuke. I'll explain how I came about this eye, and it isn't what you're imagining. Then he started telling the story of his best friend and teammate who had died. From then on, things quickly cooled off, and Sasuke withdrew into himself, refusing to discuss the matter with anyone, no matter how hard the girl with the pink hair pressed for an answer. Sakura shook off her melancholy thoughts and looked around the quiet room, her eyes falling on a ripped picture that was hanging directly over Tezuna's shoulder. Upon reflection, she realized that she had previously observed the boy, Inari, glancing over there occasionally, but she had not given it much attention at the time. Sakura asked Tsunami, gesturing to the hanging frame, Why are you hanging a torn photo? I noticed that Inari kept looking at it all during dinner. The woman looks at the above photo, her lovely features hardening. It was of my husband. Tezuna began in a raspy voice, realizing that his daughter was not going to go into detail for the bewildered shinobi who had been listening in. Kaiza was a man known as the hero of this town. Tezuna started telling them the story of how Kaiza, a straightforward fisherman, rose to become one of the most powerful men in Wave, a small nation. After hearing the elder man's story, Kakashi inquired, noticing that they both spoke of the man in the past tense. Was he the reason that Inari is so against heroes? Kakashi asked. Yes, Gato had him publicly executed and dismembered for trying to go up against him. The boy idolized him. His death hit him the hardest. Shocked gasps were released by Sakura and Haku. Shouldn't the opposite happen then? If he idolized him as his hero, shouldn't he have tried to avenge his father and help free your village in his place? Zabuza asked, clearly intrigued by what the men were discussing. One would think so, but Inari had always been a fragile and weak-willed boy. Kaiza taught him to stand up for himself. but Inari still depended on him. He became a support for Inari, and when Gato took him away, it broke my grandson and he gave up hope of becoming strong and reverted into his earlier self. Kakashi thoughtfully tugged at his mask. I see. Well, that certainly explains why Naruto and Inari clashed. They're complete opposites. Yeah, I can't see that blonde shorty giving up so easily, if ever, said Zabuza. Kakashi chuckled bemusedly and said, the term quitting doesn't even register with him. Talk turned to less significant and everyday topics, and eventually Sakura and Sasuke became bored and excused themselves, going to their rooms. Tsunami and Tazuna came next, not long after. The Mist Shinobi realized they were missing their third member when only Kakashi, Zabuza, and Haku were left in the dining room. Zabuza asked Haku, where the hell is that white-haired little prick? Haku gave a shrug. He left a few moments after Inari and Naruto departed the dining room. Kakashi added, I'm surprised you didn't notice Zabuza. Of course I noticed Monkey. I just wanted to know where the brat is, scoffed the swordsman. Monkey? Kakashi questioned, eyebrow raised. A smug look streaked across Zabuza's tan, bandaged face. The swordsman smiled merrily as he noticed the annoyance in the silver-haired shinobi. That's right. Monkeys copy others quite well after all. With a hint of amusement, Kakashi answered dryly, ah, quite clever little one. The missing nin bristled at the way the man put it. Zabuza bit the cool looking copy nin, practically hissing, who are you calling little monkey? Kakashi teased the displeased swordsman. Oh, do you not wield such a large weapon as compensation for down under? As he took out and opened his book. A rather steamy scene in his favorite book caught the silverhead's attention, and he ignored the audible crack of wood coming from the tall man's direction. Say that one more time, bastard monkey. I'll show you small. I will show you why I'm revered as one of the most dangerous swordsmen of the mist. To his amusement, Kakashi wondered aloud, did you say something, little one? As he casually glanced over his book and noticed a red-faced swordsman. It reminds me of Guy all over again. When Haku realized that the battle was about to start, she quickly got up, blushed, and left the room to avoid the angry missing nin and shinobi with the cool appearance. It was too late in the evening to be addressing that issue. A cool breeze ruffled her long ebony locks as she stepped out into the night. She turned to face the pier that was furthest away from the house as she heard the muffled sounds of voices. Kimimaro, Kagemaru, and Naruto were sitting there on the wooden pier, having a quiet conversation. She moved silently in their direction, but they could all feel her coming. Kimimaro nodded to Haku, glancing over his shoulder in her direction. She arrived at the now quiet boys with short, collected steps. Haku sat down next to Kimimaro with grace and looked at the blonde who was staring at her very intensely. Flashing a little red in her cheeks, Haku met Naruto's gaze. Is something on my face, Naruto? Wah. What? No, nothing at all. What makes you say that? The flustered blonde nervously rambled as he rubbed his head in embarrassment, much to Kagemaru's amusement at the abrupt question that nearly knocked the whiskered boy off his perch on the pier. Oh, you were looking at me so intently. I thought there was something on me that I hadn't noticed earlier. With a drop of perspiration on his face, Naruto sheepishly replied, silently cursing himself for being caught staring. No, nothing like that. I was just thinking how, pretty you are. Haku felt quite thankful that the girl's blush was kept hidden from the boys by the darkness of the night, even though it threatened to consume her face. Thank you, Naruto. I'm flattered. Naruto responded with a similarly radiant expression, saying, You're welcome, Haku. Kimimaro interrupted the two blushing teenagers with a sharp cough. So as I was saying, Naruto, that was how I met Lord Kakashi 4 years ago. I still have his headband as well. The Kaguya's voice carried a hint of irritation, and Naruto felt shivers down his spine. His eyes glinted with irritation. The blonde nervously replied, trying to sound casual. Oh, right. That's really something. Who knew Kakashi? Sensei was so heroic. He's such a lazy bastard to everyone else. Man, why is it that I always manage to annoy or humiliate everyone I meet? Haku softly laughed at the expression of annoyance on Kimimaro's face upon learning that the blonde had called him his savior. Naruto, must you speak of Lord Kakashi in such a way? He is after all your sensei and a very great shinobi. You should have more respect for him. A voice called out from behind the three seated people. Couldn't have said it better myself, Kimimaro, thanks. Nah, I agree with the shorty. You're nothing but a lazy bastard, monkey. To Kakashi's annoyance and delight, Naruto bragged, Hey, No one can call my sensei a lazy bastard, but me. Oh, I see. Thanks, Naruto, Kakashi muttered in a dry way. The blonde's face lit up with a foxy smile. Anytime Kakashi, sensei. The silverhead sighed with silent exasperation and shook his head. Anyway, Naruto, Sasuke and Sakura have already retired for the night. You should as well. We have an early day of training ahead of us tomorrow. What are we going to be training in? Cause this was definitely overdue. You'll see, now off with you. The bearded blonde stood up and wished the others a restful night. See you guys in the morning. The others sensed Kakashi's sudden seriousness as he turned to face the three of them once the blonde and black wolf dog had entered the house. Now that my students are gone, I want to ask you if you will help me on a little mission. Zabuza asked sharply, what's in it for us? The 15-year-old with white hair resolutely declared, I will do whatever you ask of me. Lord Kakashi, regardless of the mission or reward, it is the least I could do. Kakashi turned to face the older man and the younger girl after giving the young man a thank you glance. Thanks, Kimimaro, but it's a mission and payoff I'm sure you'll all enjoy, especially you little one. Zabuza's dark eyes flashed dangerously with annoyance, but he quickly wished it away. Just get on with it already, monkey bastard, before I lost my patience and kill you. Ma. You're no fun. I want Kimimaro and Zabuza to accompany me to Gado's hideout and rob him of all he owns. If we remove his wealth, then he can't hire any more shinobi to come after us or Tazuna. If then, the opportunity shows itself, we may eliminate him as well. The swordsman appeared to consider this for a moment before responding. Well, that's not such a bad idea. We'll do it if we get to keep a cut of the money. How about we discuss that after we've returned successively from the mission? Alright. We'll do this tomorrow afternoon. If you will, Haku will remain behind and watch over Tazuna and his family, plus my cute lil Genin. The only girl responded, bowing her head slightly to show respect for the Jonin. That is fine. Zabuza let out a sigh, knowing that his two charged so well, one of them would, but still were willing to assist Hitaki regardless of whether he did. Alright, we'll go along with this plan of yours, monkey. With a trademark grin, Kakashi said, glad we all agree. The dawn brought with it the clean smell of the briny sea. For the Konoha ninja who had never seen the sea, it was a welcome change. After eating breakfast and tidying up, the shinobi tiptoed outside toward Tazuna's house and the surrounding forest. As they made their way deeper into the dense forest, Sakura asked, so Kakashi, sensei, what are we going to be training? The Jonin answered, turning from his book to face her, it will be a chakra control exercise. It will help when it comes to doing ninjutsu and various other things. The blonde, who was talking to Kimimaro and Haku while Kagemaru was squatting next to him, became apprehensive at the reply and turned to face the silver-haired man and Pinkette. Don't tell we're going to be doing that. Oh yes, that. Kakashi exclaimed, his one visible eye showing a broad smile. Man, this is going to suck, the bearded boy exclaimed, drawing attention from the silent onlookers. Naruto explained, addressing the perplexed looks his teammates were sending them. Don't worry about it, Sakura will probably have the easiest time with this. Sakura smiled smugly and said, oh, finally realizing that I'm better than you, Naruto. No, but this exercise involves chakra. You have an incredibly small reserve of chakra, so you'll have an easy time since you won't have that much to control. While the bastard and I have to deal with large reserves. Naruto ignored the shocked, indignant expression the rosette gave him and turned to face the suave looking Uchiha. Trust me, bastard, this is going to suck equally as much for me as it will for you. Walking forward, Sasuke scoffed, I doubt that. Naruto rolled his blue eyes and said, alright fine, don't believe me, but you'll see that I'm not wrong. Then he resumed his conversation with Haku and Kimimaro. Though they said nothing, Kagemaru and Kakashi saw what the blonde was doing. They exchanged a wry look before moving forward. After determining the best spot, Kakashi paused and gave his students an explanation of the task. Alright guys, I'm going to be teaching you how to climb trees. There was a profound silence surrounding them as his two students, the ones who weren't blonde, gazed at him with bewilderment and shock. But we already know how to climb trees, Kakashi, sensei. Yes, but in this exercise you can't use your hands, only your feet. The Jonin turned to face Kimimaro, who was watching the genin with a sly grin on his face while leaning against a nearby tree, noticing that they were still perplexed. Would you please show my students what I'm talking about, Kimimaro? The white-haired teen nodded respectfully and proceeded to walk up the tall oak tree that was standing proudly in front of the genin. When he came to a stable branch, he stopped and took a seat. With a smug smile, he observed the expressions of disbelief on the faces of the two genin standing next to Naruto. Sakura shrieks in disbelief. How did he do that? He just walked up a tree as if it were nothing. As he turned to face the screaming girl, a twitch appeared on Naruto's forehead. It was chakra. Kakashi told us it was a chakra control exercise, remember? Even I told you about it. Sakura glared at the blonde, disregarding his remark and asking the amused Jonin some questions. Kakashi. Sensei, how are we supposed to do that? It's simple really. Just channel your chakra towards your feet. Too much and you'll fall off and damage the trunk in the process, but too little and you won't stick. As he was explaining, he paused and threw a few kunai at them. Use these to mark your progress up the trunk. You might want to try running a start to begin with. When he was done, he went back to reading and observed his students starting their homework. All of them, that is, except for one. Kakashi sighed and said, Naruto, you have to at least show you can do this. A pout appeared on his scruffy face. This sucks, I don't want to do it, it's too lame. After landing from his attempt at the tree, Sasuke smirked and said, just say you can't do it, loser. No need to make excuses. A sly twinkle appeared in Naruto's ocean. Blue eyes. If you're so sure you'll reach the top before me, then why don't we make this interesting? HN. Right, the first one to the top gets to dare the other to do something they can't refuse. Sasuke grinned, nodded, and bolted back toward the tree. Kagemaru and Kakashi were so frustrated by his actions that they shook their heads. The poor child. The blonde turned back to face the Jonin after hearing a sigh from behind him. Kakashi said, not taking his eyes off the page he was on, don't make it too embarrassing, all right. With a sharp glance from his dark, furred companion, the blonde realized that Kagemaru was supporting his older brother in this matter. After taking a shot at the man with the silver head and grinning smugly, Naruto made his way to his own tree. Over his shoulder, he said, no promises. The missing nin from Kiri peered interestedly at the procession. So the blondie is going to win this little bet? Zabuza asked after the two genin had left the area of hearing. Oh, yes. Poor Sasuke was duped. Why are you so sure? Zabuza asked more. Because Naruto already knows how to do this. Even walking on water he is proficient at. Kakashi shot back, his dark eye gleaming with amusement. He was just being lazy about doing it earlier, and wanted his team mates to think he struggled at it. Quite the clever little brat. At that, Zabuza let out a deep, boisterous laugh. I'm beginning to grow fond of that shrimp. Naruto had already reached the very tip of his tree and was waiting for Sasuke to notice, but the two were too preoccupied with their conversation to notice it. He had prepared Sasuke's challenge beforehand. Well, things are going well in life. Nevertheless, Haku and Kimimaro, who had been observing the three genin with great interest, were the first person or people to notice. They exchanged a sly look and said nothing. This was going to be a really fun one. Sakura exclaimed, hey, this is easy. She noticed that Sasuke had turned to face her in shock, and she smiled smugly. Sakura wanted to celebrate her win, so she looked all over for her blonde teammate, but she was unable to locate him. Hey, where's that idiot, Naruto? I want him to see how better I am than him. An all too familiar voice called out from higher up in the trees, you wound me, Sakura. I thought we had something special. Sakura let out a startled gasp upon discovering the blonde lounging contentedly on the tallest and most sturdy branch of his tree. What? How did you get up there? Naruto sighed angrily. We already discussed this, Sakura. Do you recall? Chakra. The pinkhead defended herself, ignoring the icy glare Sasuke was giving the blonde. That's impossible. You cheated. You couldn't have beaten Sasuke, right? She exclaimed. Naruto calmly strolled down the trunk, saying, oh, but I did. He enjoyed the angry expression on the Uchiha's face as he leapt off once he was close enough to the ground, leaving no marks on the wood. Stepping closer to the smug looking blonde, Sasuke growled, explain, loser. He wouldn't give in and pounded that ridiculous grin off his whiskered face. Piercing black orbs, oceanic eyes gleamed with laughter. I already knew how to do this. His dark eyes seemed to narrow into daggers as he said, so you did cheat. The blonde gave a nervous laugh at the death glare, but the last of the Uchiha did not deter him. No, you never asked if I knew how to do this. I would have told you if you had. You just assumed I couldn't. So that means you still have to carry out the bet. Don't worry, I'll wait until the mission is over to make you carry out your part of the deal. A tiny smile spread across Naruto's whiskered cheeks as he continued to explain. Though you should have picked up on that, I did know since I knew what Kakashi Sensei was talking about earlier. It's your own fault for not paying attention to me. Sasuke stormed back to his tree, knowing he was cornered, and started to return to his training with an aggressive demeanor. He was not going to let the blonde loser outdo him. When Sakura got back on the ground, Naruto turned to face her with a smug smile on her face. The pinkette took offense at that and, with her head held high, stalked off in the direction her love interest was going. Sighing, Naruto shrugged himself into a seat against a nearby tree and observed Sakura's attempts to assist him being rebuffed by his rival. She did take a lot less time than I did when I started this foolish exercise, so the bastard should really pay attention to her. She would give him some helpful advice. At last, tired of seeing Sasuke collapse onto his back following every misstep, Naruto focused on the more experienced shinobi. Seeing the signs of tension in his older brother, he quickly came to the conclusion that there was something wrong. His suspicions were confirmed when he looked at Kagemaru, who was sleeping next to him and was paying the same attention to the shinobi who was talking. I wonder what the two of them are up to. Zabuza addressed the reading Jonin, saying, "We have to leave now if we want to reach the midget's hideout by nightfall." Leaning back against the trunk he was presently resting on, Kakashi observed the storm clouds gradually moving toward the small island nation. He closed his priceless books and got to his feet with a snap. Yes, there's a storm heading this way. It would be best if we left immediately, using the rain to cover our tracks if needed. The mutilated swordsman gestured to his two subordinates, and after deliberating over the ultimate strategies, the group parted ways with Haku to attend to the moody genin. Naruto appeared in Kakashi's path, wearing a serious frown, as he turned to follow his partners on this mission out of the forest and back to the house. "Why didn't you tell me you were going to raid Gado's place with Kimimaro and the old man?" Kakashi responded with a look of confusion. "It was a last-minute plan I came up with. Haku is going to stay behind in case something happens while we're gone. We should be back by morning, so do me a favor and keep this between us. I'll explain to the other two when I come back." As Naruto considered what the older shinobi had said, a flash of lightning appeared in the waning sky overhead. Much to the relief of the silver-haired man, the blonde finally responded with a cheeky grin, "All right, but make sure you bring me a cool souvenir as payment for my silence, bro." I had no doubt that he would act out because he felt left behind. "Sure, and help Sasuke out with this exercise, will you? He'll only get more upset if he doesn't make some progress today." Naruto nodded briefly, understanding the silent command, then reached into his jacket pocket to retrieve a scroll. Giving it to Kakashi. The blonde saw the blank expression on the Jonin's face as he turned to bound toward the area where his other two teammates were currently training. The blonde gave no further explanation, turning away from the puzzled shinobi to pocket his gift and pursue the vanishing figures of Zabuza and Kimimaro. "It'll come in handy, trust me. Your little brat has a lot of surprises, sensei." Naturally, dinner was a low-key affair because Sasuke and Sakura were too tired to argue with their blonde teammate about their sensei's unexplained absence before going to bed. They also wondered why the elder male shinobi of Kiri had vanished, but they gave up and decided to wait for their sensei to return when they noticed that neither Haku nor Naruto were commenting on the issue. After assisting their host in clearing the table after dinner, Haku and Naruto withdrew to their sleeping quarters and prayed that the guys would have an uneventful and successful mission. "Brother, you had better make it back safely or else Gaara will be angry at me for not taking better care of you." Through the fading light of the sky, three figures moved swiftly, the sole illumination produced by a fully illuminated moon. As the three of them got closer to their objective, a mist was beginning to descend upon the gloomy landscape. When they finally arrived at the hideout, Zabuza muttered to his silent companions, "This mist will help conserve my chakra reserves since I'll only have to thicken it slightly. Thank God for small miracles, a quiet one." Gado's stronghold was a massive spire-shaped structure that was suspended from multiple bridges connected to smaller structures among the forest's large, tall trees. As he began to draw out a seal on a piece of paper he took out of his pouch, Kakashi thought aloud, "Yes, it looks like there are only two guarding the main entrance. There are about 12 standing on guard on the different bridges beside the main one. Unfortunately, we can't be sure how many are on the inside from here. Luckily, I can solve that." When he was happy with what he had accomplished, he made a shadow clone and put the freshly inked seal on its forehead. The seal flashed a vivid blue, then duplicated itself across the clone's forehead. A popping noise emanated from the clone, and a cloud of white smoke appeared out of nowhere. There was a small brown mouse where the shadow clone of Kakashi had once stood. "What did you just do?" Zabuza asked, watching the mouse dart toward the big structure. "It was a simple henge. I used a seal to mask its chakra in case there were more shinobi on the inside that could detect it. The teen with white hair said, I see. That is quite clever of you, Lord Kakashi. Kakashi gave the boy a smile and looked back at the building. They will have to look through rooms spread across 3 stories, making it fairly spacious. It took a few more minutes for Kakashi to receive the memories of his clone. The Jonin straightened his shoulders and motioned to Zabuza to begin thinning the mist that surrounded them. When the mist was ready, Zabuza and Kimimaro used their senbons to deliver precise shots or their bone bullets to eliminate the guards stationed on the bridges. Nobody would ever again be bothered by those thugs. Before darkness overcame them, the on-duty guards had no idea what had struck them. The 3 of them hid the bodies in some nearby bushes, then stood over the entrance and went inside. Gato is not here. Apparently he already left to find your replacements. He left behind 10 guards, so it should be no problem to get rid of them all. There's 2 on the first level, 3 on the second floor, and 5 on the top floor. Walking deeper into the building, Kakashi said, I'm going to take a risk and say that's where the main office is. Before they reached the first group of guards, the 2 gave each other a knowing nod. These guards were as ill-prepared as the ones outside, failing to even get a chance to sound the alarm before Zabuza's enormous sword effortlessly put them in a genjutsu and dispatched them. An idea struck Zabuza, who was annoyed and moaned, these guys are just as weak as I remember. He turned to the silver-haired shinobi, you know, this would go much faster if we split up. Kimimaro can handle the idiots on the second floor while you and I take care of the third floor. After giving it some thought, Kakashi nodded sharply, and Kimimaro vanished from their side and started toward the stairs. The 2 A-class shinobi dashed past the second floor and headed toward the third at the first sounds of combat. The floor beneath this was not like any other in the building. The reason for the heightened attention to detail is that it was more opulent and contained valuable items. Zabuza pointed to his left and said, yeah, the midget had his office here somewhere. Down the hall if I remember correctly. As the 2 were about to round the corner, they encountered 2 of the 5 guards that were still on duty. Quick-witted, Kakashi threw a set of shuriken at the gullible vigilantes. It was as easy as a flick of the wrist to eliminate them. Kakashi began to focus his chakra on his senses and muttered, well that's 2, now where's the rest? His improved sense of smell allowed him to quickly locate the remaining barriers. They were in a room together. That's the midget's office. The door was closed, so there was no way to sneak up on them. There were a few ways to finish this, but Kakashi was aware that time was of the essence and that most of them required it. I think now would be a good time to test the new seal that Master Jiraiya and I have been developing. The last surviving Hitaki, having made up his mind, took a flask of ink and a brush from his pouch and began to draw a seal design on the wooden door. Hey, monkey, what the hell are you doing? Zabuza scowled as he studied the brushwork on the door with curiosity. As he stood back to admire his creation, Kakashi said, it's a special seal Master Jiraiya of the Sannin and I created, yet there's never been an opportunity to test it out on the field. Well, until now that is. He made a few adjustments and was then prepared to turn it on. Casting a sidelong glance, he gestured for the swordsman to retreat. Kakashi channeled his chakra and placed his palm against the center of the seal. The array glowed for a moment before disappearing into the wood. As the minutes passed, there was silence. Even the expert in silent killing techniques was unnerved by the eerie silence that followed. Zabuza could no longer contain his curiosity and spoke up, so did it work? With a slight tilt of his head, Kakashi turned to smile at the man with black hair. Like a charm. The silver-haired shinobi opened the door and moved aside, letting the missing nin enter the room first, as though to emphasize his point. The tall swordsman claimed shock and awe. The final 3 guards were lying on the ground, completely unconscious. He would have thought they were dead if it weren't for the slight rise and fall in their chest. What did that seal of yours do? Kakashi's dark gray eye had a satisfied gleam. We call it the blackout seal. It creates this air vacuum in any enclosed space, sucking the oxygen out of the room, while at the same time, creating an unbearable pressure on the body. When exposed to the combination, the body can't handle the strain and, as a way to preserve itself, shuts down. The man with the mask paused and pointed to the men who had fallen to the ground. This results in a blackout, and when they wake up, they will have no idea of anything that happened beforehand. It will be very useful now that I know it works properly. Casting a cautious glance at the shinobi's beaming smile, Zabuza felt uneasy at his abrupt change of direction. Out of curiosity, what would have happened if the seal hadn't worked as you expected? Kakashi hummed to himself, pondering the question. Kakashi couldn't resist the opportunity to play pranks on the man after noticing his uneasiness. I'm beginning to catch on to Naruto's addiction to practical jokes. To the swordsman's dismay, Kakashi shrugged his shoulders and replied, who knows? It could have caused an explosion or created a black hole and sucked us inside, instantly killing us, but there's no really knowing what could have happened. On Zabuza's barely perceptible brow, a tick appeared. You're telling me if you messed up that damn seal, we could have died? Yes, instantly actually, so it's really great luck it didn't backfire on us. There was a heavy wall of silence that closed in on the two men. Before the swordsman could force himself to calm down enough to speak, a vein pulsed dangerously on his brow. His tone was calm and sharp. When we get back to the bridge builder's house, I'm killing you. Kakashi started to laugh nervously and a drop of sweat appeared on his temple. Ma, no need to be so harsh. Anyway, now on to the next phase of the plan. The three shinobi's journey home was illuminated by a burst of fiery light. They darted through the dense undergrowth, escaping the dark smoke that threatened to engulf them. With the gathering storm clouds obstructing the moonlight, visibility was becoming more difficult. Kimimaro asked the older men in front of him, was it really necessary to destroy the hideout? Giving the glowering missing nin a smug smile, Kakashi clarified, no, not really, that was all the little one's doing. Zabuza shot back, quickly defending himself, saying, well, I wouldn't have gotten bored if you hadn't let all those blondie clones do all the work. Kimimaro was curious and asked the silver-haired Jonin to explain. You see, my little Genin gave me a scroll before we left and said it could come in handy. I recognized the containment seal on the parchment, but there was a strange array on it that I had never seen combined with it. Kimimaro was able to detect the awe in the voice. So I activated it and 50 shadow clones belonging to Naruto appeared. Turned out, he had combined a hibernation seal, which froze his chakra, and managed to contain his clones without the risk of them dispelling after being sealed. It's the first of its kind actually. Kakashi responded in a proud tone. Zabuza cut in with a sneer. Yeah, after that shrimp army appeared, the monkey had them do all the grunt work and seal all the midget's valuables into those damn scrolls. With nothing to do, I grabbed some of the monkey's explosion seals and had a little fun while I waited. The swordsman's face lit up with a big smile when he remembered how he had relieved his boredom, and the other two companions' brows began to perspire. What a fool. The two exchanged a deadpan look as they thought at the same time. Kakashi sighed and quickened his pace, forcing the other two to keep up. Let's just get going. My genin will be waking up soon and I just know they will be very moody. The early morning earth was covered in a freezing downpour. The three genin knew what to expect from the weather because they had noticed the warning signs the day before. As his teammates were eating breakfast, Naruto said, man, it's going to be a pain in the ass to continue training. What do you guys say to waiting this out? However, a different voice spoke before either of them could reply. Ma, Naruto, I never took you for such a slacker. The blonde sighed and pouted at being cut out of free time. You always ruin my fun, sensei. The other two missing nin from Kiri, along with the Jonin, appeared at the doorway, surprising the genin who hadn't sensed their approach to the property. Sakura questioned, Kakashi, sensei, where have you been? Oh, here and there. We went to scout out Gato's hideout, but unfortunately he had already left the place. The teen with raven hair was enraged by his response. Why didn't you take us with you then? It's our mission too. Kakashi glanced at the swordsman and then turned back to his glum pupil. No, not necessarily, Sasuke. As the genin assigned to a mission above your experience level, your first and foremost duty is following the original mission parameters, which is guarding Tazuna. While I, the commanding officer, take certain measures to ensure that my team is not endangered further. Dark eyes bore into the silver-haired Jonin, showing no emotion, but Kakashi could see that his analytical black eyes were trying to find a way to dispute the statement. When that failed, Sasuke turned to glaring at the table in front of him. With a smug smile that was concealed from everyone else in the room, Kakashi then turned to face his blonde pupil. He could see the gears in that thick skull turning. Casting a critical glance at Naruto, he took a quick look at the surprisingly reserved woman on his team. Sakura tried to come up with something to say to support Sasuke when she noticed that the Jonin was staring at her, but she was also at a loss for words. With a disgruntled sigh, she turned back to finishing what was left of her meal. Kakashi chose to give his genin a little respite before forcing them to resume their training after they had him under control. Alright fellas, seeing that the weather is rather unpleasant at the moment, I'll allow you to take this time to relax and enjoy yourselves, but first thing tomorrow it's back to training. Naruto and Sakura gave him whoops of joy when he decided to further prove his point with another bolt of lightning and crash of thunder. With a scowl, Sasuke headed back up to his room, which he shared with the blonde. The pinkette scrambled to her feet and followed the boy who was backing away. The raven picked up speed toward the seclusion of his room, ignoring her pleas to do something together. After they were both out of earshot, Naruto looked at the three older men in front of him, losing all amusement in his sapphire eyes. He narrowed his eyes at the silver-haired Jonin, crossing his arms across his chest. "So where's my souvenir?" Kakashi laughed and reached into his vest to pull out a shiny silver chain. He extended it in the direction of the impatient blonde, but the Jonin withdrew it as Naruto reached for it. "I found this in Gado's vault, but before I give this to you, answer me something. What gave you the idea to create that chakra stasis seal?" Naruto grinned broadly and started to explain how the seals were made. "I thought of the idea when I realized that, if I could seal some of my clones, I could give them to others to use in emergencies if they ever needed the help, and I would know immediately what was going on once they dispelled. It's like having a small communicable army in your hands without the immediate loss of chakra." The boy appeared differently to the three shinobi. Such cleverness concealed behind such a foolish and innocent Fa-section aide. The boy was an uncultured genius. Kakashi held the chain back in front of the blonde, who hesitated for a moment before accepting it, believing the Jonin would pull a double cross. Examining the glittering jewelry, Naruto exclaimed, "A necklace? What the hell, Kakashi? Sensei, this is for a girl." The shinobi with silver hair started to explain his peculiar gift, a crinkle appearing in his visible eye. "It's not meant for you, Naruto, but for that pretty little girlfriend of yours. Don't you want to give her something nice? Girls love gifts after all, especially expensive and sparkly ones." Naruto and the Jonin didn't always think alike because he occasionally had very strange thoughts that made it difficult to understand him. Examining the necklace that was hanging in his hand, the blonde couldn't help but compliment Kakashi on his jewelry selection. Though basic, the design was quite sophisticated. Naruto recognized that Ino would adore the suspended amethyst teardrop gem, which was held between two chains of silver. Looking back over his shoulder at the expectant Jonin, the blonde saw that Kimimaro, standing behind Kakashi, and Zabuza were both staring at him with that same look of bewilderment, though Kimimaro was hiding his better half. Naruto growled, "What? Something you want to say?" Zabuza asked with a raised eyebrow. "You have a girlfriend, Blondie? How the hell did that happen?" A quick red flush spread across his cheeks, which were covered in whiskers. "Wah. No, we're just friends." Zabuza nudged the blonde Genin more, his dark eyes flashing a mischievous grin. "Oh, then why did you get such a stupid grin on your face after the monkey told you it was meant for that girl of yours?" "What did I do?" Naruto bemoaned his incapacity to conceal his feelings more effectively and hoped that the incessant swordsman would be saved. When Haku emerged from the kitchen through the doorway, it seemed as though there was a god above. "Master Zabuza, Kimimaro, it is good to see you have returned well. You as well, Sir Kakashi." The shinobi greeted her, but when Zabuza turned around to irritate the blonde, he discovered that the genin had disappeared from the dining room. As he made his way to his own room to rest, Kakashi chuckled, "He's very quick when he wants to be, little one." Disappointed that his good time had been cut short, the missing Nin went to his own bed to get some rest while muttering curses to himself. Haku frowned and turned to face her childhood friend. "Did I miss something?" Kimimaro sighed and shook his head, frustrated. "Trust me when I say we're surrounded by idiots." After the shinobi returned from their spontaneous mission, a week went by with no more incidents and pleasant weather, which allowed the genin to continue practicing their chakra control. Much to their annoyance, Naruto had finally assisted his teammate with Ravenhair, and now Sasuke's chakra control was on par with the rest of his team. The seasoned shinobi could feel the tension building as a dense fog began to form as they waited for the bridge to reach its final stage of completion. When Team 7, Zabuza, and Kimimaro arrived on the stone bridge, they saw no trace of the workers who had been there the days before. The sky was clear, but the sun was obscured by the dust, mist, and chunks of dirt that choked the air around the bridge. Speaking out to the others, Naruto exclaimed, "Where the hell is everyone?" With his sword handle ready to be unsheathed if needed, Zabuza replied, "I'd say that midget has finally made his move." The novice genin was not comforted by a sweaty mist carried by the wind off the roaring waves beneath the stone arch. It made them feel even more blinded, as though they were walking into a warm, swirling cloud and being engulfed in it, disappearing. Many of them had never experienced a kind of noisy, hollow silence like that before. Even the hardest bitten of the three, Naruto and Sasuke could feel the tangible tension in the air. There was something outside. The blonde sensed the chakra signatures approaching, but they were only barely visible on the edge of his detection range, so it was hard to pinpoint their precise position. There's several chakra signatures heading our way, but I can't pinpoint them. It's almost as if they know my radius limit. After hearing the blonde's evaluation, Kakashi became even more tense. Back then, these new rivals were no simple pickings. They were sufficiently skilled and experienced to evade being discovered right away. He flicked his narrowed gaze at the blonde, who nodded in return. Team, Manji formation around Tazuna. Don't break formation, unless it is unavoidable. Message received and understood. Little one, try and do something about this mist. I don't want to be blinded side, Kakashi went on. The swordsman released some of the tension from the youngest ninja present in the lone civilian by cursing the Jonin and clearing the dense fog. Kagemaru, can you smell in which direction they're coming? From his position next to Naruto, the black wolf dog raised his muzzle in the hopes of catching a strong scent. The majority are approaching from the left. 2 are going around on a boat toward the bridge builder's house. Everyone there, except for Jonin and the blonde, was taken aback by the large dog's audible speech. Sakura bellowed, the mutt can talk? Kagemaru growled at the pinkette, warning her. Yes, I can. Now don't raise your voice again, you may have already given our position away. Save it Sakura, and don't call Kagemaru a mutt, got it? Naruto stood up for his friend, getting the black furred wolf dog to nod in appreciation. The female genin quickly stopped talking, making a mental vow to exact revenge on the blonde and dog before taking up her guarded posture once more. Disregarding the arguments among his pupils, Kakashi concentrated on the conflict that lay ahead. It was good luck Haku remained behind. She can handle the 2 at the house. Can you tell how many are coming from the left? The black animal gave a negative headshake and grimaced. There are too many scents mingling together to make an accurate determination, but I would roughly say about 10 to 15. Over the dissipating mist, a harsh voice boomed, oh very close, how about 12? 12 shinobi, each with a musical note headband as a symbol, stood in front of them. Many of them carried swords in their hands and odd-looking weapons fastened to their forearms. Sakura questioned, a hint of fear in her voice, Kakashi. Sensei, those markings on their headbands, which village is that? I've never seen it before? Kakashi concealed a frown upon seeing the small group. They're from the new hidden village of Sound located somewhere in Tea Country. No one knows the exact location however or its leader. Zabuza remarked, unfurling his massive blade, the midget must really be desperate to go and hire these guys. They all look about Chunin to Jonin level. Kimimaro added his own assessment, saying, the tall man in the middle must be the leader, he's the one who spoke earlier. Kakashi nodded absently, observing that the man Kimimaro had indicated was also likely the strongest of them all. He quickly came up with a practical plan. Well, there's 12 of them and 6 of us. So Sakura, your job is guard Tazuna. Boys work together and get 4 of them. Zabuza and I will get 3 each, leaving Kimimaro to deal with the remaining 2. The Jonin quickly addressed those who were present. As soon as he saw that everyone was nodding in agreement, Kakashi launched himself forward first, kunai in hand, Zabuza at his side, his sword out in front of him. Naruto and Sasuke stood ready in front of their female team, mate and client, waiting for the enemy shinobi to break away. Kimimaro stood a few feet away, her eyes narrowed with observation. Sasuke surprisingly told the girl, who swallowed and nodded mutely, Sakura, make sure you pay attention to your surroundings. Don't let your guard down for anything, got it? Her own kunai knife was held shakily in front of her as her eyes darted around, searching for something. Naruto stopped talking before he could say anything more, snarling a battle cry to startle the final Uchiha and blocking multiple shuriken before they could reach him. Sasuke nodded gratefully to the blonde, but only after reluctantly changing into his taijutsu stance and blocking a punch from one of the sound ninja with his forearm. Naruto was fading between 2 ninjas as the Raven matched the Chunin punch for punch. They traded blows, attempting to determine each other's skill level as their power and speed increased. Using the momentum from a kick against one of his opponents, the blonde made a decisive move by grabbing the extended wrist and pulling the older shinobi into the other. Naruto took out 2 slips of paper and tied them to the bare necks of the auto ninjas while they were down. They were instantly immobile, limited to their breathing only. The blonde chose to educate them while standing slyly in front of them before assisting his teammate. Naruto waved smugly and hurried over to assist Sasuke as another auto ninja joined him in repelling the genin. Those are paralysis seals. You guys aren't going anywhere until they're taken off. About time, loser. Akinit, bastard. Naruto moaned as he defended himself against a far superior foe than the two he had faced before. Sasuke was spared no more words by Naruto as he charged at the Oto ninja with amazing speed. Although Uchiha, with his raven hair, was swift, Naruto was far quicker than him. Even with himself, Sasuke found it difficult to acknowledge. Naruto and Sasuke quickly dispatched the opponents between them. The two finished in time to witness Kimimura's astounding skill after applying another set of paralysis seals to the sound shinobi. The blonde asked his equally shocked teammate, "Is that a bone sword?" "Looks like it. Must be some kind of Kekkei Genkai." The blonde almost forgot about the past memory that was triggered by the words. It was madness that drove them. They were a brutal clan from Kiri who had thrived on their own strength. No one really knows what caused them to attack, however. "I just hope that at least one survives this tragedy," the older Hokage started to explain. Naruto said, "How come, old man? They sound like really bad people," as he took a seat on the sofa. One must look underneath Naruto. This clan possessed a very rare and powerful Kekkei Genkai. It would be such a shame for it to not live on. Gaara asked, "What was the Kekkei Genkai?" The Kagaya clan had the ability to control their bones. Shape it, create it, and even strengthen it. It was amazing to watch them fight. The most powerful of them could even form shields of their very bones to cover every part of their body. It was incredible. Naruto looked up at the dancing swordsman, much more weary than he had been before, and with a hint of awe at the sudden memory. "Kagaya," the blonde said in a tone that was almost reverent. His teammate with the raven hair heard him. "Kagaya?" Sasuke asked, eyebrows raised. Naruto nodded his head, indicating the 15-year-old with white hair. The Kagaya clan was from the village hidden in the mist. They rebelled against their village a few years back and were slaughtered. It was rumored that none had survived. Yet, seeing Kimimura's manipulation of his bones, I can see that isn't true. "What makes you say that?" The Kagaya clan had a special Kekkei Genkai which allowed them to manipulate their own bones into weapons and shields, just like Kimimura's doing now. Sasuke nodded, understanding that the blonde was well informed about them. "How do you know so much about them anyway?" Naruto dismissed his question and looked around for a good excuse. "Well, I read up on Kekkei Genkais once and they were one of the most notable clans. It's actually kind of a good thing one of their clan still lives to pass on the trait. It's a very valuable Kekkei Genkai after all." Sasuke and Naruto moved on to a more fascinating topic, choosing not to press the boy any further. The fight between their sensei and the missing nin. The leader of the sound shinobi laughed wickedly when the pair killed the last of his team, leaving him alone. "It's nice to see that the rumors about you two weren't exaggerated. The great copy. Nin of Konoha and the demon of the mist. It's an honor to be the one to kill such fearsome foes," he said. "Now let's see if you can hold up against the might of sound shinobi." The tall, broad-shouldered man delivered 2 blows, only to have Kakashi's forearms block them. In an attempt to throw the man off balance, Zabuza attempted a roundhouse kick, but it was easily blocked in return. Punches and kicks were exchanged, extending the fight, but the lone ninja with sound was able to avoid them. But, frustratingly, he was not making much progress. "I've wasted enough time. I'll show you the true power of one of the most strongest members of Oto. Behold a gift given to me by our master. A gift only a select few are even given the chance to taste." Suddenly, the sound shinobi's chakra became tainted. His face and arms started to get black, scribbled marks, until only half of his face was left unaffected. The curse mark of Orochimaru? Kakashi had a somber thought. The fight has just become much more intricate. "What the hell's on that guy's face?" Zabuza exclaimed, raising the question that the onlookers had not heard. The sound shinobi was never very attractive to begin with, but he just became even more hideous. The silver-haired Jonin explained tensely, "It's a curse mark, which strengthens the holder. This guy is a serious threat, so don't take him lightly." As a surge of ferocity surged across the bridge, the A-class shinobi readied themselves for a considerably more challenging conflict. The Oto ninja's voice trembled with barely controlled insane glee, "I'll kill you all." With such intensity, Kakashi's dark and red eyes narrowed down on the insane sound ninja, and the only thing keeping the deranged man from looking away was sheer willpower. "That look in your eyes will be much different when I get through with you," cried the Oto-nin, slapping his sword and charging forward to confront Kakashi. However, before the blade could make contact, the man was pushed aside by a much bigger metal blade that blocked it. Zabuza laughed sarcastically as he charged toward his target. Let me handle this bastard. He's making us true swordsmen look bad. When the Kiri.nin made a dismissive remark, Kakashi stopped making hand gestures in the middle of a series of hand signs. He dismissed it right away because he had not survived all these years of being hailed as the Yondaime Hokage's brilliant student only to be ignored by some overly sensitive missing.nin with a grudge. The silver-haired shinobi said, a little offended, stop playing around Zabuza. That seal is no laughing matter, then waited for a chance to strike. The black-haired shinobi asked, who's playing, while trading more sword swings with the noise, making ninja. With tense eyes, Kakashi observed Zabuza and the Auto.nin dancing to a menacing melody. Even though the Auto.ninja had his increased strength to level the playing field and the Kiri missing.nin had the expertise and experience, neither side was winning. The genin, temporarily forgotten, observed the fight with differing degrees of amazement. Naruto said out loud, who knew the old man was that skilled with his overgrown sword? Kimimaro, who had already dispatched his opponents, laughed. He had approached the Konoha genin, who were now gathered together in front of their horrified patron, forming a protective formation. As they all watched the match intensify, the white-haired teen said, Zabuza taught me quite a bit when it came to kenjutsu. He was regarded as the most fearsome of the 7 swordsmen of the mist after all. After the missing nin took a strong blow from the Auto shinobi that knocked him back a good distance, Sasuke remarked, those markings on that ninja must have increased his strength exponentially. Zabuza looks to be having trouble pushing him back now. When Sakura noticed that Sasuke was talking a lot, she decided to add a brief aside, saying, yeah, and they definitely didn't do anything for his looks. The men in the area couldn't help but mentally agree with her. The grotesque Auto ninja's face displayed a sneer. The cursed shinobi tormented Zabuza, hoping to infuriate him. Is that all you have? The legendary demon of the bloody mist? What a pathetic joke, he exclaimed. The tall missing.nin shot forward with deadly intent toward the sneering Auto ninja, a burning fury coursing through him. I'll show you pathetic. Die worm. Kakashi stood aside, merely shaking his head in silent amazement at Zabuza's propensity for getting worked up over a disagreement. This man truly is a moron. I'll have to use the Hiroshin if he doesn't move quickly, but I don't want to reveal the jutsu to anyone just yet. Oh, Zabuza. Haku arrived on the scene, but nobody else noticed except Kakashi as the fight continued. She observed the battle with a worried look as she concealed herself a short distance from the engaged shinobi. Normally, Master Zabuza would be far more cautious than this. When the dueling shinobi realized their swordplay was going nowhere, they broke apart and began performing a series of hand seals alternately. Water release. Water dragon bullet. Zabuza outran the Auto.nin in speed, and before the man could finish his own jutsu, his water dragon leapt forward. The missing.nin, hiding under the shadow of his attack, raised his blade for one last, decisive move. Nobody anticipated, though, that the cursed sound ninja would manage to avoid the jutsu and slip under Zabuza's protection while sporting an odd device on his forearm. They walked past each other and nothing seemed to happen. Suddenly, though, the tall, much-feared missing.nin collapsed to his knees, regurgitating red liquid and bitter bile. His dark eyes were glazed over and dreamy. Old man. Zabuza, Master Zabuza. The combined cries of shock had no effect on the Auto-nin's progress toward his fallen foe. He demonstrated by raising his metal forearm. With a satisfied sneer, the Auto.nin explained, look at this lil beauty. It disrupts the sound waves reaching the ears, leaving the receiver unbalanced and extremely vulnerable. Zabuza attempted to get up again and regain his bearings, but the ringing in his ears persisted. His unfocused gaze could hardly distinguish the approaching, hazy figure of the enemy. At his side, his blade lay dormant. I'm unable to stand. He's too near. I won't have enough time to move aside. Oh my god, he shut his eyes. However, the final blow never materialized. When warm drops landed on his face, the last known Momoichi opened his eyes in shock. The green robe that was protecting him from the sound.ninja he knew was standing on the other side was now plainly visible to him. The red-stained blade sticking out of someone's stomach that he was all too familiar with. No one watching had ever heard the demon of the bloody mist speak with such desolation and brokenness. Haku. What did you do? The brunette lowered her dark brown eyes to warmly look into her beloved savior's wide, terrified ones. The ice mirror she had utilized to get to him in time melted, causing water to seep into their clothing and a cold, numbing substance that they chose to ignore. Her blood spurted from her tiny, pink, smiling feminine lips as she said, I will always protect those precious to me, Master Zabuza. I will always gladly give my life for you." The words reverberated and echoed across the deathly quiet bridge, her words frozen them all. "Haku. No." Naruto uttered in a startled state of dismay. His azure, blue eyes searched for the shaky man clutching his fist tightly at his side. The green eyes of the young mist boy filled with crystal tears. Kimimaro. The young adolescent darted toward his fellow mist countrymen before he could move toward his white-haired friend. In his uplifted hands, a hardened blade. His agonized cry for retribution ripped through the lowering sky. Kakashi was startled out of his horror, stricken stupor by Kimimaro's moving figure, and he quickly ran to the other fallen shinobi's side. "When I still had the chance, I ought to have used the Hiroshin, asshat." Kimimaro had already reached the man who would soon die at his hand, even as the silver-haired Jonin mentally cursed himself for his folly. "You bastard." The Auto.Nin retaliated against the bone sword that was thrown at him, sensing the teen's impending arrival. The white-haired teen's body suddenly revealed razor-sharp bone spikes, though, which surprised him. Dance of the Camellia. With each cut of his bone blade, the multiple bone spikes tore through the petrified Auto Shinobi's chest with a bitter fury. Kimimaro's assault was as graceful and lovely as it was merciless and brutal. Upon observing that Kimimaro was effortlessly subduing the final adversary, Kakashi joined Zabuza and Haku. The girl lay motionless on the bridge's icy stone surface. Cradled in the trembling swordsman's lap was her head. The Jonin stopped walking a foot or two away, terrified to move closer. "Zabuza, is she?" The missing Nin's head turned sharply toward him at the sound of his voice. The Konoha Jonin could plainly see the tears running down his face and dampening the bandages covering his face. "Kakashi, please do something. Save her, she doesn't have very long." Shocked by the man's apparent desperation, Kakashi cursed his lack of medical jutsu once more. "Oh no. If only we had more time, we could get her to a medical facility or emergency room. Hold on. Time. And that's it." The sound of footsteps approaching them quickly and loudly couldn't have come at a better moment. Kakashi turned to face the young blonde who was racing the genin and the bridge builder, narrowing his eyes. "Naruto, quickly create another one of your hibernation seals." In a few seconds, the blonde had a blank scroll, ink, and brush in his hands thanks to his sensei and brother's urgent tone. It took a little longer to create the seal itself, but there would be enough time. The rest of Team 7 was taken aback to see their usually agitated colleague quietly and totally focused on his work. His delicate brushwork appeared almost foreign in comparison to their recollections of the blonde. Their focus was so focused on the boy with whiskers that the sound ninja's screams and agonizing whimpers were easily ignored as background noise. With haste, Naruto handed the finished scroll to Kakashi and took a step back to observe the man's intended seal. The blonde anticipated the exact moment the Jonin got close to Haku's unconscious form. Unknowingly, a sigh of relief crossed his face. "What's Kakashi-sensei doing, loser?" Naruto's train of thought was interrupted by Sasuke's baritone voice. His smile turned into a clearly joyful, "Oh, he's going to save Haku's life." The young raven's face grew gloomy. "How? What were you just writing on that scroll anyway?" With a sigh, the blonde started to clarify, "It's called a hibernation seal. It pretty much just freezes whatever's sealed inside until it's unsealed. In normal storage seals, living beings can be sealed within because of the air. Less vacuum inside, but with this one, the one being sealed sleeps in favorable conditions and is completely unharmed." Beside the scowling Uchiha, the young Kunoichi's face began to show understanding. "I see, so Kakashi-sensei is going to seal Haku inside, but won't she just bleed out anyway?" "No, she won't. Time can't touch whatever is locked inside. She'll be exactly as when she was first sealed," Naruto clarified, shaking his blonde mop of hair. "So he's simply biding his time," Sasuke muttered to himself. "Exactly, now we can get her to a hospital with nins to save her without the time limitation. We could unseal her in a month and she will be exactly as she is now. It's considered a space-time fuinjutsu." The blonde saw that Kimimaro had at last composed down to stand beside the knelt elder shinobi and listen to Naruto's explanation as he gave it to his bewildered teammates. But after that, all that remained of his opponent was mutilated, unidentifiable flesh that was bleeding. To the blonde's relief, Kagemaru's cool voice cut off Naruto's sickening thoughts. "Boss, there are no more enemy ninja anywhere near, but there is a large contingent of bandits and thugs approaching with whom appears to be the leader, Gato. They will be here in about 10 minutes. With the prisoners taken care of, all that's left is to deal with those thugs of. Sakura cut the blonde off, much to his annoyance. Wait a minute, where have you been, Kagemaru? All the fighting's over already? I am not a frontal assault fighter. My skills are primarily in tracking and hunting. Boss sends me to patrol the perimeter for any remaining enemies during a fight, the Golden Eyes said, peering into steaming green orbs. Kiba's dog, Akamaru, is much smaller than you, and yet I know that he is a fighting ninkin. How come you are not? Sasuke inquired, taking an interest in the unexpected exchange. He is an Inuzuka dog. They have secret clan techniques which enables them to fight alongside their partners, Kagemaru said, turning to face the curious Uchiha. You are not from the Inuzuka? Sasuke asked, taking a moment to register his surprise. The wolf dog with dark fur shook his head, offering no further explanation. After all, there was only so much you could divulge to other people. The boy with the whiskers swiftly corrected his partner's and his teammates' conversation when he heard it veering off course. Bastard, Sakura, you can talk later with Kagemaru. We have more important matters to deal with right now. Sasuke scoffed as he moved away from the group to face the sensei and the finally composed Mist Missing. Nin. Sakura complained, but she also did as Sasuke had done and concentrated on the more senior shinobi. When all eyes were on him, Kakashi said, Haku is fine for now, but she'll need immediate medical attention, preferably in a hospital, once she is unsealed. The silver-haired shinobi continued, having heard the Ninken's warning, now the most urgent thing to do right now is to deal with those thugs that we will be here soon with Gato. You leave that midget to me, Kakashi. I'm going to return the favor for what that sound ninja did to Haku. Zabuza sighed. Kakashi nodded, knowing that the man's pride had already suffered greatly that day. To the amazement of those in question, Kimimaro added, it will be for the best if your students and yourself didn't get involved in this fight, Lord Kakashi. Naruto shot back, hey, we can handle a few thugs, no problem. The younger shinobi was startled into silence by the stiff-backed, white-haired teen. I do not question your skills, but I know that Zabuza and I will not be able to maintain our composure for long once the fighting starts. You will only be in danger of being injured if you engage in the fight. The Jonin wearing the mask realized. These two are barely controlling their rage. I nearly feel sorry for those wretched people. Kakashi merely held up a gloved hand to appease the blonde's squawking of indignation, saying, I understand, Kimimaro. Rest assured we will not intervene unless absolutely necessary. Kimimaro bowed respectfully and gave the Jonin a small, bittersweet smile. Thank you, Lord Kakashi. Sakura said, clearly bewildered, I don't get it. Why did you agree to that, Kakashi? Sensei? After Kimimaro had moved to stand next to Zabuza a few feet away from the group. The people around were surprised to see that it was Sasuke who responded. They're wanting to avenge their friend and they don't want us in the way. It's to be expected seeing how they acted earlier. The pinkette blushed slightly as she saw the last remnant of the dark-haired boy, calm and collected. She didn't seem to notice the faraway glance that glazed Sasuke's dark eyes. Something that neither the silver head nor the blonde did, but neither called attention to it. Kujmaru gave a warning bark, alerting the shinobi to Gato's approach. It's such a shame that those sound ninja fodder didn't take out at least half of you, but I've brought more than enough men to take you all out. A million Ryo bonus to whoever kills the most ninja. There were excited shouts in response to the short despotic man's offer. Hell yeah. Dibs on the stupid-looking blonde and pink-haired brats. No way I'm taking them all out. The young genin were bracing themselves, hearing all the taunts and insults, in case Kimimaro and Zabuza weren't able to eliminate them all. With his signature eye smile in place, Kakashi reassured his students, those guys are really going to regret saying anything soon enough. So just relax fellas, I won't let anything happen to my comrades. The tense preteens felt much more at ease after hearing his words. An arrow fell into the invisible border separating the two fighting sides as the Mist Missing. Nin and last Kagaya took their positions in front of the Konoha ninja and bridge builder, guarding against the group of thugs. As someone pretty great once told me, that only those who are willing to sacrifice everything will be able to bring change. So we're not going to let you thugs get away with what you've been doing to our country anymore. A boyish voice called out. Battle cries from the many villagers who had previously appeared to have no living will were heard after his proclamation. Nonetheless, they all had intense passion in their eyes. They had been given new hope. Who knew the little crybaby could be so cool? Way to go, Inari! Naruto exclaimed with a grin on his face, oblivious to the boy's disapproving expression after making the crybaby remark. "Ah, Naruto, you don't have to be so mean," the blonde apologized, smirking. Yeah, sorry about that, but I can't just let you and the mist guys take all the fun." When the boy with whiskers raised his hands in a seal, a cloud of white smoke erupted, covering the bridge. As it cleared, a group of blondes stood out conspicuously close to the armed villagers with pitchforks. Naruto smirked and exclaimed, "This should even the odds." A second burst of smoke shot up, but this time it carried a horde of silver-haired Jonins with it. With a playful smile, Kakashi addressed the bewildered blonde, saying, "I thought it would be best not to let my cute little student outdo me." With a knowing smirk, the two turned to face the businessman who appeared afraid and the dumbfounded thugs. After a moment of complete silence, Zabuza said, "Stay on guard, Konoha ninja, but let us do the fighting." His fiery eyes gleamed with pure hatred, threatening those in front of him with agony and death. A few of the thugs in the Demon of the Bloody Mist's direct line of sight started to cower in fear at the enormous man with the enormous sword in his hands. The wind had picked up and the sky had turned an ugly lead color. They all waited for someone to initiate contact, and you could hear the flutter of cloth. From the nearby forest, a leaf had fluttered onto the stone bridge. The tense opponents followed its slow descent with great interest. As if on a signal, the moment the leaf touched the ground, both sides shot toward one another. The glorious battle for Nami would live on in the memories of those who witnessed it. The last Kagaya and the fabled Demon of the Bloody Mist engaged in combat together. A well-lubricated apparatus. The enraged duo was too strong for the army of thieves and thugs. Many of the villagers who had come expecting to fight for their lives fled swiftly back towards their village until there were no more sounds coming from the bridge because the carnage was so horrific. That day, Team 7 discovered the actual meaning of a ninja's life. Zabuza and Kimimaro turned their attention to the trembling man who had planned the entire mess after the last bleeding corpse fell. The once respected untouchable man Gato was on his knees before the terrifying missing nin, pleading with him, "Please spare me. If it's money you want, I'll give you as much as you want, but please don't kill me." Pressed against the pale, sweaty throat of the small-statured man was Kabikari Bacha. "What money? You were robbed cleaned, weren't you? I would know. I was one of the ones who did it." Gato growled bitterly, momentarily forgetting his fear due to the surge of anger at the mention of the burglary. "That was you? I'll see you pay for this," he said. Zabuza grinned savagely and pressed harder with his blade. A tiny droplet of blood flowed over the powerful sword. "Pay? You are in no position to be acting so highly. You will die by my blade for Haku. If she dies, I will find some way to bring you back to life just so I can make your second death 10 times worse than what will happen now." The terrified man let out an audible gulp as the thin cut from bleeding on his neck began to hurt. No need to be so hasty. I can give you I can give you lands." Glad to see the formidable swordsman was paying attention, Gato proceeded with optimistic zeal. "Yes, lands? See, I just bought this chain of islands some miles from here. I even have the deed to Wave Country, sold to me by the water daimyo himself. I have both land deeds with me right now, so please spare me." Zabuza's dark eyes briefly glistened with a calculative sheen, then he spoke. "Show me these deeds." Encouraged by the apparent avarice of the man, Gato dug into his blue suit, took out several papers, and held them up. Zabuza waved Kimimaro, who was standing next to him, covered in blood, to look over the documents with a flick of his eyes. Confused, Kimimaro accepted the outstretched parchments and cast a tired glance in the swordsman's direction. The white-haired Kagaya quickly examined each sheet closely to ensure the authenticity of the deeds. Zabuza withdrew his blade from the short man's perspiring neck and carefully sheathed it on his wounded back. Taking the documents from the teenager, he started walking back toward the stunned Konoha ninjas and Wave villagers. "I will accept this payment, so I will not kill you." There were shouts of disbelief from the large crowd of spectators. Those faded quickly as a head rolled behind the missing nin who was walking calmly and a clear sound of tearing flesh rang out. However, that doesn't stop Kimimaro from doing so, the content swordsman said. There was a sudden hush over the bridge and all of its people. Until the noises of popping and white smoke rose, reducing the number of people in the area until only one shinobi, blonde and silver-haired, was left. "You were one cunning and greedy man, little one." After Kakashi finished his irate speech, there was an overwhelming cheer and round of applause. Once more, Wave, Nami, was a free nation.
That's it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed this great story. See you in the next one.